This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. And on our agenda, our first article is the approval of the minutes of May 21st, 24. We did not have the meeting in June, so the minutes are from May 21, 24. Do I have anyone to approve the minutes?
I'll approve the minutes or whatever. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. And second. Thank you very much. Now the minutes have been approved. Our next agenda is the ordinance of amending the Unified Development Ordinance to establish foundation survey
Shouldn't it be
requirements for the
public
new
comment?
construction.
Shouldn't public comment be next?
Please?
Public comment, shouldn't that be next? Just asking.
Good catch.
Anybody like to make any public comments?
No, I'm just listening to you guys tonight.
Thank you, sir.
When you,
I
mess up, you
apologize.
will know.
Okay, no comments. And then next agenda items, number 4, which I had stated before.
Yep.
Would you like to, y'all like to review it and see how everything's good?
Have a staff briefing.
How you doing?
Yeah, we'll absolutely be happy to do that. So, Julie, you want to brief them on
Yep.
on number 4?
This is an ordinance amendment to the UDO to establish a foundation survey requirement. Already, for anything that's in the floodplain, we have to have surveys of foundations. And this would just apply this requirement to other locations for residences and businesses. Bottom line, it ensures that the structure is in the right place and minimizes the potential of errors. Errors do happen. I don't know if you've looked around Cape Carteret as much as I've had the responsibility of doing so, but sometimes something will be built in front of the setback or into the side yard. And once it's constructed, there's very little we can do about it. So that's the purpose of this, is to get the foundations in the right places for all structures.
Isn't that what we do now?
Yeah, I was gonna
No,
ask the
It
builder.
only applies in the ordinance. It might be in practice what you do as a builder, but the ordinance only has it in the floodplain. It does not, and that's what this would do, is to put a
Because I
requirement.
always do it, because once I do my foundation,
Yes,
I shoot it, because I want to make sure it's right before I stand timber.
Right.
'Cause I had a friend in Raleigh that encroached on the Duke Energy CP&L's and 2-story house, and he had to move the house.
yeah. And that's the practice, that's the builder's practice. And it is a requirement in lots of places. It is just not in our
Oh,
ordinance.
okay, well, I always
Yeah.
do it.
Could I ask for clarification now? I'm aware that we do have a requirement for a foundation study, but this is adding an elevation. An
This
elevation.
they would be spot elevations on the
Yeah,
corners.
you need to do a foundation survey.
I understand that.
But-
But I'm asking, why? And it's a more complicated question. It says deficiencies
Yeah.
detected by such review shall be corrected. Okay, how is one to correct deficiencies?
Well, I'm just going to give an example.
Good.
Ted, sometimes you might have to tear up a part of a foundation to get it to the proper elevation or to the proper location.
Okay, what is the proper elevation? That's what I'm getting at.
That would be elevation in your flood.
But if it's not in a flood zone, what is the
Well,
point of
what's
the
the-
elevation if it's
exactly.
not in the flood zone?
Yeah, so
But you
Julie,
need to do a
Ju-
foundation survey
Yes,
to make
we
sure
know
the
that.
house meets the setbacks.
Yeah,
and all
but,
We know
that.
but
that.
Well,
don't,
I think the language you're reading, Paxton, if you're reading off of the memo,
Yeah.
that's existing language that applies to the floodplain development ordinance. So we would not require the elevation certificates if it's not in a flood zone.
But in the flood zone, it does require some sort of a survey of the foundation.
Yes.
That's the point.
That's
Yes.
fine.
And on the back of that page
Yes.
is the proposed language, and it's really about the location of the foundation.
yeah, because I'm gonna use an example of my house. My house is probably one of the highest places in, in Cape Carteret, because it's on the hill and back in Star Hill North, Bob White Circle beside it, and I'm the high mound. So elevation wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, that's right. And we don't want an elevation certificate for your house, basically,
Okay.
because you're not in a flood zone.
Okay.
We have language currently in there, and that's cited in the memo
Yeah.
in our floodplain management
Right.
ordinance that requires that. Julie was just providing that as background
Yes,
for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
yes,
So this requirement
absolutely.
is just for basically the horizontal placement
all right.
of the foundation,
Where
not the
those
vertical.
corners are gonna
Yeah,
be.
sorry, I'm a little slow sometimes.
No. I mean,
No worries.
it's hard to,
Me too.
it's hard to put into words.
Yes.
A lot of the
Yeah.
different concepts.
And Ted's absolutely right. Most people do this, right? And every place I've ever worked, it's been
Yes.
common practice. It just is not referenced in our ordinance, and we're just trying to tidy that
And I
up.
thought when you pulled a permit, am I wrong, when you pull a permit, don't you have to show the setbacks on the permit?
Yeah. Some builders, to save $1, they'll measure off the setbacks themselves.
I got you.
But I like to tread with caution.
Yeah,
I get my surveyor to put my box on the ground.
yep,
And I tell him, I said, put the biggest box you can get there, and that way I can move my house around in the box instead of pinning my four corners.
yeah. Okay, so that's what most builders do.
And
Am I
then once
correct?
I do the foundation, I call him back to shoot the foundation and then calculate and make sure my foundation's within sight of my box.
Okay,
And I do have to send one to get permitting up front,
Yeah.
but it's just a safety factor
Okay.
there that you're not
yeah,
encroaching.
you just don't want to spend the money to have to move it if you had to move it.
That's right. I don't want to move a house.
Yeah, exactly.
That has happened in Cape Carteret at Star Hill.
Mhm.
So give me an example of a deficiency.
Well, what I'm trying to say is it's not in the right location. That's
It's
the
encroaching.
deficiency. Yeah.
Like, for example, if on their permit application from the beginning, they showed the foundation meeting all of the applicable
Yes.
setbacks, but in practice, they actually built it and
Okay,
it was
just-
encroaching in the setbacks, we would make them adjust it and
Yes.
get it back within the setbacks.
And unfortunately, that has not always happened in the past.
Oh, yes.
Correct.
But by having this
Yes,
wording in the
yes.
ordinance, we have teeth. Right now,
Gotcha.
we do not have teeth.
Gotcha.
And we'd rather do that when it's just a concrete
Oh,
block on the ground
totally,
as opposed to a
totally.
structure.
Yeah.
I originally,
It'd be like
way
that
back,
case in point with the fence over there at Yo Pond that's encroaching into a power right of way. Say if I build a house there and I permitted it, and then I put a fence in the encroaching in the right of way, that would give them legal right to say, you need to tear the fence down and make the correction.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally
I think a
agree.
lot of storage units have been in the encroachments areas. In
Buildings.
our town.
Are you talking about like buildings, sheds? Yeah, there's been a few of those on
Yeah.
houses.
Yeah, so just so I'm clear, I mean, we would not require a foundation survey for a new shed for an accessory structure, just because those tend to be movable, portable.
But even if
in
it's one that
nature.
they're pouring a slab and,
Yeah.
I
I dealt
Well,
with that.
on any shed like that,
Uh-huh.
I always make sure that it's meeting the setbacks.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
But would this also cover, a shed that is an immovable shed, one or a movable garage, I'm going to say as an example.
It actually wouldn't, because we don't currently require a survey for an accessory structure, because those are more minor. Now, if that's something you all want to look at in the future, we can do that, but we're talking about
Okay.
homes and
Yeah.
significant structures.
Yeah, I would say anything that's on a permanent
Permanent
foundation
foundation, okay.
needs to be surveyed.
We may need to amend the ordinance in
Yeah,
some other
because the
places.
movable sheds that they deliver on the rails, you can move them. But if you put a foundation there, it needs to have a survey, I would think, to make sure it meets setbacks, because that's non-movable.
Brandon Hawks and I had to deal with a shed because the neighbors complained and they had not. And I think that we did put something in the ordinances about sheds at that time, Frank.
Well, we definitely require the shed to meet the setback, so there's no question about that. But we have existing language in the ordinance, and part of that section you're going to talk about a little bit later. But for accessory structures, we don't require the survey for that. I think because the town was trying to be helpful to people doing minor projects and not get them tied up with the delay and the cost associated with that. But we can look at that.
But I think if it's a, like he said, an immovable structure, then it needs to somehow make sure it's within the setbacks, because
Well,
seen some for sale.
When they provide their plan, they have to show where the property lines
Yeah.
are and the setbacks.
You look at it, if it's on a slab or a foundation, it must be permitted.
Okay,
If it comes in on the back of a truck,
it can't,
No.
it's not permitted, yeah.
Well, actually, we do require a permit if it comes in, if it's a
Yeah.
portable shed, if it's an accessory structure. The distinction, we require a permit for an accessory structure, no question. The difference is whether or not we require a survey for that. So my only presumption is that the town didn't want to place that additional time and cost burden on
Yeah.
a resident
Right.
who was just putting in a shed or something like
And
I
that.
guess
think
if
it
it's,
was the
depending on the
size
size of the,
That's
of
right.
the structure
Sure.
would be where I would talk about a permit.
But-
I mean, a survey versus not a survey. If it's over so many square feet, it should be should have a survey.
Now,
If it's on a
Carteret can't-
permanent foundation over a certain size, that's just my.
Well,
thought
there
on
is
it.
a size issue on storage sheds in our regulations.
Okay.
Now, Carteret County will come and check the foundations before they're building, correct?
To see if it's poured correctly, or if it's, from a building inspection perspective, yes.
Right.
But
the
not the
floodplain.
location.
Yeah.
But not the
but they
location
come and
of it.
inspect the foundation, but we have to get a survey to turn into zoning,
Right.
showing the existing structure, the foundation. And then the zoning person approves that, saying it's within the setbacks, go.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, I don't have like the ordinances with me, but it says the application checklist, the zoning application checklist requires a foundation survey. And then down below, it says the foundation survey requirement applies in section 14-15-3 to A4. But then you've got 14-15-3-2 C1 down here. And it's just kind of throwing me off a little bit. And then over here it says you would add to section 14-8-23. And it's, is that all correct, or is it like in a different section?
It's a different section.
Okay.
The 14-15-3-2 is floodplain. And floodplain currently has a requirement for a survey. And so we are proposing to put that same requirement as a general requirement throughout the town.
Is it a
That's-
checklist though?
Well, this, I'm going
Is
to hand out.
14-15-3-2 a checklist, or is that something different from the foundation
No,
survey checklist?
I think just to try to explain it, so typically, there are some older documents in use in the town. Some of them are checklists that are intended to be helpful to the applicant. And on that checklist, it shows a requirement for a foundation survey. And the only thing we could presume is that because our floodplain ordinance requires it, they included that on the checklist. So I think Julie was just simply trying to alert you to the fact that that is one of the things we do ask for when it's in the floodplain management, when a flood zone. And all we're trying to do is include that same requirement anywhere in the town, again, for the horizontal placement of the foundation.
So, but does the ordinance require the checklist? Or it's,
There's no requirement for a
Use
checklist.
the
It's just
checklist,
kind of
okay.
a common practice to help people when they're
Okay.
applying for things. And we probably need to improve our
Yes,
checklist, to be honest with you. A
absolutely.
lot of our forms are a little dated and probably could use some improvement included in the checklist.
So one thing I was going to hand out, and I got it here and I'll hand it out now, it's in the zoning ordinance. It is application for zoning permit, and it kind of gets through the checklist and some of the things that you were asking about.
But in the past, we have definitely had a requirement for a foundation survey prior to continuing construction. And are you saying that's no longer in our ordinances?
Not that I've been able.
Well, that's a serious omission.
That's-
That's because
that's what
that
this
has
needs to
been
correct.
a requirement in the past. I know it. I lobbied for it in the past
And it's very common.
because of the Star Hill house that had to be moved 7 feet.
Maybe Zach Steffi removed it. He
Who
moved a lot
knows?
of ordinances.
Yeah, that would be like a as-built survey. Because at the end of the flood, we have to do the first horizontal member survey as a as-built and submit it for approval.
But I'll give you an example that happened recently, probably in the last, I don't know, maybe 3 months or so. We had an individual who's building a new home on a very large lot in town and is doing it himself.
Yeah.
And kudos to him for that. And he's trying to move it along as quickly as possible and as inexpensively as possible. And he just simply gave us a drawing, didn't even have a survey for the house or the foundation, but we required him to have the survey.
Good.
And so we're just trying to tidy
Yes.
up the ordinance here.
Yeah.
So it's good practice for everybody's
Well,
sake to
I mean,
require that.
I can testify that was a requirement of the town. It was a town ordinance to have a foundation survey before construction proceeded. And
built one.
good for putting it back in.
Yeah, because I had to have.
That's what this would do if you
Yeah.
all are so inclined and the board of commissioners is inclined.
I built in 2000, so it was there then.
So this is 1488, so it comes before where you're proposing to,
So this is when
Yes.
it's in a flood zone.
this whole thing
Yeah,
is
this,
when it's in a flood zone?
No,
no,
Oh.
this
no,
is in the zoning ordinance. This is like, kind of like what we hand to people
Because it
when
says-
they're proposing to
yeah.
develop something. These are the requirements.
But this is actually written in the ordinance, right?
This is
it.
in the ordinance.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so everything on here is required.
yes.
let's see, it's floor plans. I thought that's it. I read it.
Get those glasses updated.
Extra
Yes.
copies.
Yes.
I
yes.
dropped my,
Yeah.
you want me to hand one to him? Okay. Or you want them
Okay,
back?
here, Frank.
Okay, great.
I dropped my real
You'd
glasses
like
over
to
for
have one, Frank.
So I went and got me you like my old lady glasses?
You got your wife's glasses?
No, I went to the thing, I was like, oh,
So
these work.
does anybody have any questions? Have I answered all the questions you've had?
You said that using the checklist is listed on here?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't think there's any requirement for us to have a checklist. And really all it is just part of the application form, and it's intended to be a helpful tool so people know what they have to actually submit. I don't know that there's any requirement to have it, but it's good practice. And I don't even think it needs to be codified that we would have one.
It's
but-
just a tool to help
Yeah.
anybody who's applying for a permit to be able to focus, what do they need to give us? And it's been used historically, I'm going to say 2016, that's as far back as I've been able to look at zoning permits.
This is a guide for when you're building a new home or something.
Yeah,
And
that's-
It's
you
just,
don't-
if
and you
it
don't
was,
have
if
a
it was
building.
actually listed on this, then they would have actually had to have a foundation survey.
That kinda
That's what I
helps.
was getting at, is that if this required them to do the checklist and the foundation survey was required on the checklist, then
Yes,
we
it
would
was,
actually
and
be
it was
covered.
removed apparently.
And that's what we're trying to correct.
That
Yeah, I was
keeps-
just
that
trying
keeps
to
them
figure
from
out
boring you to death
what
coming
the
back.
actual, like, current requirements are.
I guess current requirements is this, right?
Yeah,
That's all that is.
but I thought I heard her say that it was on here, so that's why I don't read
See, it's
fast
on the
enough to look at all
checklist,
of
but it's
this.
not
It's like too
in
long
the
to read.
ordinance.
but-
Okay. An application. So the requirement application for the flooding zoning. You'd like to add that back in, make a motion? Do we make a motion on it, Frank?
What I would suggest is if you're comfortable with this, I would just make a motion to recommend approval of the ordinance amending the UDO to establish the foundation survey requirement for new construction.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll
Anyone like
second.
to make a motion?
He made a
Ted
motion.
motion.
Ted?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
second it.
Make a board bond.
Well, personally, I think it probably would have, if you went by this, it would have had to be this.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I know that it's a checklist, but
Oh, I do building in a lot of different counties and all of them do it.
have 2 rules to 1 setting, right?
Onslow County's a bear.
Well, when you remove something, you gotta follow through all the way.
Did we vote? We called for the vote?
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Thank
All in favor? Thanks, Julie, for catching that and getting our, get it back to where it should have been.
So the next item is about impervious surface cover. And, bottom line, we have a stormwater ordinance that says 30%. All this is really doing is asking builders, property owners to put a table in that shows what their impervious cover is when they submit a plan. Because we don't have that as a requirement currently. And it leaves it up to guesswork,
So the things we just approved to be built, this wasn't in it for them?
That would be on your site plan. It would have the impervious on the bib. All the surveys I do tells you how much impervious you got, how much you got, and you do the math and it tells you how much usable land you can do.
And in the CAMA zone, don't you already have to do that in anywhere that you have to use in the flood zone? Don't you already have to do a lot of that with the?
Well, that would be on the CAMA permit.
That's right.
I
That's
got you.
not on our, it's not a requirement of the town,
I got you.
You would have to follow the town
Yeah.
and CAMA.
And is the town and CAMA both?
They're not inconsistent. They're both looking at things differently,
Yeah.
from different perspectives, but the numbers would line up.
Okay, then, well, that was my question because we're not shrinking it from what CAMA already.
No.
Okay.
But this proposed requirement would apply everywhere in the town. So we included a copy of the town stormwater ordinance in your packet. And some of you were on the board when the planning board reviewed it. The Board of Commissioners adopted it about 9 months ago, maybe. And so what our stormwater management ordinance says is that essentially what it says is if you need a state stormwater permit, you got to get a state stormwater permit and that'll meet our needs. What it says is if you don't need a state stormwater permit and it's a large scale project like commercial or a subdivision, then you have to have an engineer, you have to do infiltration of the first 1.5 inch rainfall event. All that information is going to be there. Really, I think the practical use of this requirement is in our stormwater ordinance, we have a requirement that says if you exceed 30% impervious coverage, then you have to infiltrate the first 1.5 inch rainfall event. If you're below 30% of the lot impervious, you just have to meet some simple driveway requirements. So the inclusion of this ordinance will just basically tell us that data to make that determination going forward.
I have a question. Does this apply only to new construction?
This applies to new construction. It also applies, I believe, to any significant modifications.
Well, significant because everywhere in this section, 13,000 square feet.
Yeah.
They're covering the land.
Well, this just is the table of information.
Yes.
The 30% requirement is still there,
But are we enforcing it? No, we're not.
Well, we've only had it in place for
Yeah.
probably about 9 months or so now. It may not even be quite that long. But yeah, so there's 2 things going on. There's the stormwater management ordinance. And so that clearly says if it's an existing home or if it's new construction, if you exceed 30% impervious coverage on the lot, you have to implement stormwater measures and basically infiltrate the runoff from that. This ordinance that Julie's presenting right now is simply saying, we want you to give us that data with your application. So,
Which is a good idea, but
Yeah.
I have observed in this section, mostly because I drive through it 2 or 3 times a day, that we've got houses on lots that are 13,500 square feet, and bam, here goes a garage beside as big as the house. And there's been no,
It could
Check.
be, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but if it was already permitted, I don't know that I can go back retroactively and enforce a new regulation on people.
well,
sir.
I agree, But we need to be more cognizant of this because it's happening every day.
Well, I think we are. And
Good.
so like Julie said, there may be some, if there are things that you've seen in the last 6 to 8 months, please
Yes.
let me know about that. We'll look into those and follow up on them. But anything that was permitted prior to that ordinance being adopted would not have had to meet that requirement. The other thing you need to keep in mind is even on a 13,500 square foot lot, 30% of that's about 4,000 square feet of impervious coverage. So they may not even exceed the 4,000 to trigger the requirement. And that's why this data is helpful to us when they give us the application.
I got one for a shed today, and I had to run all the calculations, you know.
Yeah.
Where they should have to run the calculations,
Exactly.
is what you
You know,
said.
and I don't want to get in a situation where
Yeah.
this is what I say it
Yeah.
is. Oh, I say it's something different.
But if somebody needed help calculating it, they could come in here, talk with you, and y'all would work it out, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Certainly try to help them.
But, you know, on the permit that I'm going to issue, I'm going to put a statement about the stormwater
Good.
requirement. So, you know, now that we have the requirement, we can put that into a permit before we didn't have it. And so change happens incrementally.
See, there goes back again that you go on the existing house, you come permit, get a zoning to put a additional structure. That's where the impervious should come in, see how much you already got on the lot, how much you're adding it. I agree with Ms. P, that you got houses out here, they put these mantle mansions up, they're
Yeah.
sitting on a slab and they're eating the impervious up.
Yeah, and so I think for a new construction, it's going to take the surveyor all of about a minute to calculate the
Yeah.
impervious coverage and put it on there. It gets a little more challenging with the existing structures and additions or accessory structures or new driveways and so forth. And so, you know, what I would say to you in practice, if it's difficult to discern how much impervious coverage it is and whether it's going to trigger that 30% requirement that we have in our stormwater ordinance, then yeah, we're going to require a survey. If it's a situation where somebody's just bringing in a portable shed, for example,
Yeah.
and they got a huge lot and we know they're not anywhere close, we're not going to require them to go to the trouble and expense of a survey, but we are going to require them to calculate the impervious coverage and we'll
Right.
review it and so forth. So,
Does this include concrete covering one land?
correct.
Yeah.
Impervious.
Yeah.
Concrete,
Then you-
roof line,
Bricks.
bricks,
Then you-
pavers.
What brought this to light to do this?
Well, the fact that we do have a stormwater ordinance, and we have to know, we have to be able to calculate what is impervious.
I know it came up 9 months ago. I was wondering if there was some issue
No,
that brought
no.
it
And,
forward.
and in fact, in looking through all these old permits, a lot of them, as Ted was saying, a lot of people already do that, but it's hit or miss.
Mhm.
And it should be consistent so that, you know, the planning staff knows.
Yeah, I mean, really, what triggered, honestly, other than item number 7, what triggered all 3 of these items on here tonight is just Julie identifying deficiencies in the UDO and trying to tidy it up as we can going forward. So there wasn't really, I don't think, one particular issue that led to it, just trying to tidy things up a bit.
The only other question I had is the definition of redevelopment projects.
Very first line.
Where are you looking?
I'm looking at the existing UDO.
14, 12, 16, second line.
Okay.
Well, it's saying that state stormwater permits address certain types of development, and that's what state stormwater permits address, development or tearing something down and redeveloping it. But that's what state stormwater permits address. And this is just like, say, background information.
Got it.
Any more questions? No? Anybody like to recommend agreement on the ordinance?
So did you want this to just be a recommended format, or do you want them to actually use this format?
Something comparable to that. I mean, two columns of data. I mean,
Because I would say you will use this format if you want I don't know how they would, if they have a choice. I don't know why make it a choice if you want it to look like that, maybe just say you want it to look like that.
But it may come a different way from the surveyor. I don't know. I'm asking a builder.
I think the key thing is just making sure we get the correct information. If the format's similar to that, I think that would be
That's on the
acceptable.
bid.
Yeah, but it doesn't say they have to submit it similar to that.
I'm not.
Yeah,
It
how
just says
easy,
table.
So,
That's all it
how
says.
easy would it be for an individual to get this information for us?
To be able to survey, she gives you an example right here. That's the way it's calculated out. That you look.
yeah, I would just caution the planning board and the board of commissioners about being too prescriptive
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
things
I
like that.
mean-
I think as long as we get the information and it's the information we need, I think we're probably comfortable with
Yeah, I
that.
think every survey should have that on it due to the stormwater runoff. Because if you exceed that, it's other ways that you can do stormwater.
Okay.
That keeps all the water from running out in the roads and all. You can put drains in the ground to capture the water, that tells what you need to do.
Well, I know, I know there's been situations that people built on a back lot and the lot in front of it's floods. So is that taken in consideration, Bay Shore's like that. We've had somebody build behind somebody and floods their yard.
But now that's in another, we've got something that stops that from happening now where if it builds and it's your runoffs running into somebody else's property, from my understanding, it's like they're required to not do that. That was something we talked about a few months ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so, and we included a copy of the stormwater management ordinance in the packet, and that's the new one that was adopted last fall. If it's a single-family lot and the person is not creating more than 30% of the lot as impervious surface, they really just have to meet some simple common sense requirements about the driveway, essentially making sure the water doesn't shoot out from the driveway onto the street. And it's pretty simple and easy for someone to meet. Now, if someone exceeds 30% impervious coverage on the lot, then they've got to infiltrate it on site. And we don't even require an engineer for that because it's a pretty simple mathematical calculation to put it in some sort of French drain type system or some sort of surface basin or something like that. But an issue where if someone just builds a house and they comply with all of the town's requirements and the water still flows on someone else's property, that's a civil matter between those two property owners. I don't think we're going to be able to prevent someone from shedding water onto their neighbor with our ordinances as they're written currently, or probably any ordinance we could come up with, to be honest with you, because there's always different rainfall events, right? And
Yeah.
so I think what happens is people think about hurricanes.
I was
Whenever there's a
thinking of-
hurricane, everybody gets really upset about stormwater management and wants really, really tight ordinances. That would never apply to that situation anyway.
But I thought it was like the first inch and a half of water you couldn't shed onto somebody else's property.
If you exceed 30%
Okay,
impervious coverage.
If you had, okay, so even if you don't, then it's okay.
Yeah,
I guess that's what
One of the
I'm
biggest
saying.
Yeah, the
problems.
first 30% is a freebie,
Yeah,
and then it's only after that.
yeah, after that it matters.
One of the biggest problems with builders is dirt.
Yes,
When they go out there and clear a lot of builders do not want to put dirt on the lot to get the house up
yes.
because they're saving money. Well, then you got Joe Blow comes beside them and builds his lot up because he don't want water under his house or against his house. So it's going to shed on the guy that's saving money. Another thing with these driveways that y'all say put these channel drains in, the problem with that, where are they running? Nowhere. And like I did a project, Channel View.
Yeah.
If you noticed, instead of shedding water on the house to the right, I tilted my driveway to the left to shed the water in the front yard. Because I was thinking, what's the channel drain gonna do? It's going nowhere. It might slow the water down, but we need to keep the water in the yard, not in the street. You agree?
Yeah, but most people, a lot of builders aren't gonna think like that, truthfully.
Yeah.
We have a house right now on June Road, the water pools in front of.
You know, one thing though, down here, it's sand. The
Yeah.
water ain't gonna
It
stand.
goes down after an hour or
And
two.
when I have a homeowner call me and say, look, I got standing water in my yard, you bill. 48 hours, call me back.
20 minutes usually.
48 hours, give me a call back. And I tell you what, 9 times out of 10, 48 hours, I go out there, the water's gone.
Yeah, and so, last fall, we had a pretty robust discussion with the planning board at that time about, and these are all great comments and great questions, but it really comes down to the balance of how much burden and cost do you want to put on the property owner?
Yeah.
When you also, particularly when you consider that 75% of the lots in town have already been built with a house on them and those people didn't do anything, right? So it's,
Make sure
but that's,
he hears that
welcome
thing.
to the show. So.
I've
It's
lobbied
scary.
for years for the simple
I
fact
jumped.
that
Went.
Ain't gonna miss no calls from that.
I miss calls all the time. I don't have a ringer that loud. I need
Go ahead.
type of phone.
Sorry, Paxton.
Sorry.
for years I've lobbied the simple fact that one should not shed water onto a neighbor or the street. It's that simple. One should not do it. And if this goes toward accomplishing that, I'm all for it.
Well, I know for a fact, because I had to resurface Star Hill Drive. The way the street was paved, it shedded the water. And we had to, when you go to do these streets, you gotta see how they mount the road for that water, because it goes off into the people's yards. You can't just do a flat surface.
On either side of the driveway.
Crown.
Gotta crown it. So we had to redo all Star Hill Drive because it was not crowned. So that Star Hill Drive's been paved, what, 3 times?
Yeah, so hopefully it's incumbent upon the town to make sure we construct our public infrastructure correctly so that we
Yes,
don't
sir.
create problems.
Right.
Absolutely.
When you're doing
I
your
make a
bidding
motion
on
to-
paving.
Wait, can I just
Yep, sorry.
say one more thing to Julie? So maybe you might want to put at least just at a minimum, your table should include the lot size, the total impervious area before the change and the total impervious area after. Because I think those are some of the things that you'd be looking to find in the table. And it shows them like an example of what might be nice to have, but it doesn't actually say that you want that information in there.
Well, it's representative format. It's the format. It's not the content, it's the format. 2 columns, impervious cover, total. It's the format.
Yeah, so the language says, shall document in a table individual impervious area calculations of existing impervious surfaces and the proposed changes to be made on the property, removal of existing and or installation of additional impervious surface. So clearly we want to see how the site's going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't, okay, it doesn't actually say that you want like the total or the size of the lot. So. But it is in your table representative, so hopefully you don't get tables that don't
If you did-
include that
if-
information.
If you added that to this
Well, it's in there.
format,
It's
it would
in-
calculate it for her.
It says calculations of existing impervious and the proposed changes to be made.
Yeah, so they could write like my driveway is this and it's gonna be this.
Right, and what she's saying, that your formula here would calculate it for you.
Yes.
You just want the
Yes.
information.
You
Yeah.
just want the data. It
I'm
is
just saying to,
data.
okay.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, this is the type of stuff that I've seen on many surveys. And it seems to be that the surveyors understand it. And many lot owners, property owners,
And builders.
are becoming more conversant in this language than 20 years ago or so.
Yeah. All right, well, I make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending Unified Development Ordinance to include impervious coverage calculation on site plans.
Do I have a second? Ted second?
Yep.
All approve?
Right.
The final item that I have is an ordinance amending the UDO to simplify the zoning permit application requirements. And that's what I passed out, that 14.8.8 application for zoning permit. Um,
This would give me a headache.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, don't open the zoning ordinance.
I mean, when you're going to billing and you got all these to answer, it's just,
We just wanted to simplify a couple of things. Number one, many of you have seen where there were requirements for a permit for lot clearing. And historically, again, looking through all the old stuff, I did find some, but I could not find anywhere in our current zoning ordinance that explicitly says lot clearing or earth moving requires a permit.
got it.
So that's number one, okay? And,
Because yes, it did.
And that's the most significant change in this
Yeah.
ordinance amendment.
It was here. in
We
fact. We had that. We did. Julie just said that.
and I can't find it, that's why I'm putting it, I want to get it back in.
Can I ask you a question? How did something that was put in by a board get removed without a board?
Because of that company that charged us $26,000 to redo our UDO. They left it out.
But did we not look at it to make sure that it?
Our town manager
Apparently.
should have reviewed it.
Okay, I was just curious on that. I was lost on.
You asked that, Steffi.
Okay, I was just confused on, you know.
Okay,
And then one other, if you look at this page that I had passed out, it's a lot of words, but they have, for new construction, near the top, you have to include items A through E. And then they repeat all of those for expansion or enlargement of existing structures. It's very repetitive. And so I'm proposing that we collapse it. If it's a new structure or if it's an expansion of an existing structure, that it's in one paragraph, so to speak.
do you have a sample of the way you'd like it to read?
Yes, that's down here on your document.
On the bottom?
Yes.
And that's in that ordinance in your packet is the desired
Yeah.
language.
14A.
So y'all saying you have to require
I know,
a
I
zoning
see that,
permit
but
to
what I'm
clear the
trying to
lot?
say, This format
We
here.
used to have that.
Well,
Something like with mechanical
Understand she wants to
equipment,
change
and all the
it.
She
trees
wants to
down,
condense it into.
removing large quantities of earth.
yeah,
Okay.
because I've never got a zoning permit to clear a lot.
So all this will go away, and this will all.
Where are we talking about?
Yeah.
Class
And this
C?
will be
Yeah.
lost.
She's
I got
talking
to clear the
about
lot,
this
see
is-
what I got.
488.
It's one thing to look at, cut the grass.
If we
I think
can
that's
simplify this for our
Pull that stuff out of
residents,
order here.
yeah,
Working.
Go back.
Soil.
It's 412.
Yeah, I'm taking down trees.
Yeah, so the intent of the ordinance amendment is really just to try to condense the language and simplify it a little bit.
Yeah,
The
simplify it.
most
So we're
substantive
getting rid of
change
that.
is that we're being very explicit that you need to have a permit when you clear the lot, even if you're not planning to
Yeah.
build a house yet.
because, somebody's got to pay somebody good money to fill all this stuff out. And if we can simplify it and save them money when they go to build a new home.
So it used to say in there, any work involves plumbing. It says, or where any work involves plumbing,
Yes.
electrical, heating, air conditioning, insulation, or refrigeration permits, as may be required by the state building code. So that part is going out
Yeah, 'cause
completely. Okay.
We don't administer the building code,
Yeah.
building permits here, that's the county.
Okay. So
However,
it's
we used to.
unnecessary
Yeah.
in our,
Yeah.
okay.
We
So if
can't
I'm
do
putting
it.
in a new HVAC system, I got a permit from the county. I don't need to worry about a permit from y'all as well. And that makes sense. Total sense. Why
Electrical.
permit me a second time and charge me money for something they're already
Two
doing?
permits,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
It's just, bottom line, it's cleaning up and making it simpler to read.
Like I said, whoever's building a new home, they got to sit and fill all this stuff out, it's costing them money. And if we can simplify it, for our residents to do, I'm for it.
Okay, sure.
Is an RV parked on someone's yard considered impervious? Got a roof.
Well, unless it's pervious rock.
No, but the RV has a roof.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what
So
you're
that would
saying.
mean like it's impervious, right?
Well,
Or is
something
it-
to consider.
It's mobile.
If an
though.
RV
It's
is
mobile.
parked on a driveway, the driveway.
Right, but it would be on someone's
driveway.
yard.
But it's,
Right.
but it's
Grass.
On the,
mobile.
yeah, I
But
was
it's
just.
mobile, so how would you, they could just move it around the yard and be like, well, it wasn't there, no, it's over here, you know?
I was curious.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, so, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, we're trying to kind of, some of the more obvious, easier things
Yeah.
to simplify and clarify and correct. We're
Get
trying to
rid of some
move
of that
those
stuff.
along now. I am working on just a major simplification, clarification of the entire document. That's a really significant task, but, so we're trying to address the issues that we come across and bring them forward to the
So
planning.
you're trying to
board.
kill less trees. which
What you need to do, Frank, is build a new house here, see how these regulations eat you up.
Oh,
Well, I don't want,
Frank's building
I don't want that
inside.
to happen. Honestly, I want to make it as easy as possible
know,
for
I
people
mean-
to understand the ordinances, comply with the ordinances, and build their house and be happy.
You know, I've got a neighbor
It's, be honest,
that's
it's
building.
pretty darn simple. I have no grief with it.
That's good. That's what we want.
The only thing I disapprove of is the zoning for clearing. And I tell you why, cause I don't know what I got before I clear it, and I got to get it perked, and it's hard to perk a lot by just making a trail. So depending on where the septic's gonna be, is depending on where my house is gonna be.
Well, let me make sure that I'm clear with you, because we're not saying you can't clear the lot. We're just saying you need to get a permit.
They're
so
just
that
saying
we're
they want
aware
more
of it.
money
So-
for you to clear the
Yeah,
lot.
I disagree with getting a zoning permit to clear my lot.
Yeah,
I
think
get
it's
one
just-
after that when I
yeah.
come up here with my, survey saying this is what I'm gonna do.
It's just another
Is there a
tax.
definition for clearing?
Just
a
another
lot?
fee I got to pay, you know?
Earth moving, according to this.
Yeah.
Earth
Yeah.
moving.
But clearing the lot means cutting the trees down.
So the intent behind this is that if someone is bringing heavy mechanical equipment onto the lot to clear the lot, to push the trees down, to push the dirt around, if somebody's on there with hand tools, chainsaws, weed whackers, we don't need a permit for that. We're not considering that to be lot
Can we
clearing.
clarify that in here? Because I don't think I would know that reading just lot clearing.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, truthfully, you're getting a permit, right? It's just another fee. Am I wrong with assuming that?
Yeah, and so again, honestly, we're not doing this to raise money. That's
No,
not the
I
reason
understand
for it.
that, but
The
I'm just
reason
asking
for the
what the
requirement
purpose is.
is that it's really twofold. Mostly it's just for situational awareness, so that we're aware that someone is clearing the lot. That's really the key thing. Second is because there have been numerous anecdotal comments from people who, whether they're elected leaders or former elected leaders or appointed officials or former appointed officials, who have the belief that we do require a permit for those things. So we're trying to clarify that. Now, if ultimately you guys don't want to require the permit for that, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to adopt this, but that was the reason that we brought it forward, is we've had several people come forward and say, hey, so-and-so's clearing the lot there. Why don't they have a permit? And the answer is because we don't require a permit.
Okay,
under
well,
the
what
current
is the
language.
cost of the permit?
$100.
Okay, but what's the thought on the builders? I'm gonna,
I built a lot in Cape Carteret, and I got no issues with the process.
uh-huh.
The thing that I think they're trying to do is she builds a house and she's not a builder,
Yeah.
to help them, guide them through the process.
Uh-huh.
That's all this is. The thing I'm saying about like, clearing the lot, that's the first thing I do is
Yeah.
clear the lot. Once I move dirt, I put up silt fence.
Yeah.
If I'm near a body of water, it's gonna run off. Then I determine where I'm gonna put my septic, because we don't have city sewer.
Mhm.
And that determines where I'm gonna put the
Yeah,
house.
obviously.
Then that's when I hit my surveyor up, that he can walk on the lot and survey the lot and place everything. I just think that's
Frank, I understand what you're saying.
that's just another process I got to go through to get a zoning permit to clear the lot, when I'm gonna get a zoning permit to build a house.
Frank, when you get a permit, when they
Why
go
not?
to clear a lot, and they're gonna bring heavy
Give the
equipment in.
information.
I know, like when we did the new
Charge the
street over
money, but
here,
If you do it within a
all the
certain
new
amount of time,
houses,
you don't-
listen,
Bonita.
Does that make any
Bonita,
sense?
that I had
It's
just
another
paid
tax
that
otherwise.
street
What
And
if-
those heavy trucks coming
Yeah.
in there,
You know, that's.
cleaning all that land off,
Maybe
getting
a
rid of my
road.
road.
Now, you could say something like,
Yeah,
how
so
long does
that-
it normally
So
take
when they get this
you
permit,
to,
these big
what
equipment
he's saying,
people
like if he did
come
need
in
two
and clean a
permits in
lot
his
up, you
scenario,
have,
how
have
much time would
anything there
elapse
saying,
between those
hey,
two?
I don't
you
know,
tear our roads up, you're gonna pay us
because
back
otherwise
all
it's
it.
just another permit.
Yeah.
We used to
Yeah.
have a $250
Only way to-
fine. No, it
6
All I
months.
could think of would be to
Yeah,
say,
so,
like, unless you're applying for another
again, our
permit
UDO,
within 6 months.
in
for
my
the
opinion,
construction. I don't know
is
if
very
that would be the
confusing
intent.
and very poorly written. I think as a result of the effort a few years ago with the consulting firm. So there's some language in there that says that we may require a road deposit when you go to build your house or clear your lot. What I was told when I arrived here is that has never, ever been enforced in Cape Carteret. And at the same time, we get the comments from people who are saying, hey, so-and-so is clearing a lot on Star Hill Drive and they want to know what we know about it. I'm like, I don't know anything about it, right? And so then they say, well, didn't they get a permit? And of course, the answer is we don't require a permit. And everybody says, no, that's wrong. We do require a permit. So regardless of what you think is the right position or right policy, I'm fine with that. We're just trying to clarify what it is. And so that was the intent behind it, was really just to create situational awareness, to make sure that the town staff's aware. If you want to clear the lot, we want you to clear the lot. It's a $100 permit. I think we certainly could take the approach that if you apply for the lot clearing permit and then you come back within a reasonable time frame to
6
build a
months.
house, we can give you $100 credit. back and forth,
That was
right?
what we
Yeah.
just discussed.
So it's not about, like, I don't want
But
your money.
do we really need the permit
You know,
for the
everybody
lot
else has
clearing?
got
Or
it.
just
Yeah.
Now I'm wondering if it could just be that you will notify the town that you're gonna clear the lot.
What
Does
your
it
intent
have to be
is.
a permit?
Or it could be a no-fee permit. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're concerned about the fee, that's fine. I
I mean,
don't care
if
about
you're-
the money.
if
I
you're
mean, we
already
just want to
getting-
know that it's going on.
It just, I don't know, to me, yeah, it just seems like, one, I think we should define what lot clearing is, what you want to be notified of. Because if we go out there and cut a tree down with a chainsaw, that's not lot clearing, right?
That is not like,
Right.
that is not
But
our
it
intent.
doesn't say
So-
that.
And we can tidy that
Yeah.
up if you'd
Yeah.
like.
But what
I
if,
think that
but
would
what
be
if I
good.
brought on a
Stump
bobcat
grinder.
and a stump grinder, and that was hauling away my tree, or they brought in the arm thing to cut down my tree. Well, now I've brought equipment onto my lot,
We should just
but
be
I'm only
clear.
cutting down one tree.
Well, we should just be clear that if the intent is to notify the town if you're bringing heavy equipment on the lot, then we should just say that outright.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's clearly the intent, is that anytime there's heavy equipment involved. So I
But
would
it's
say a
not.
bobcat's heavy equipment. I would say a grinder's heavy
So
equipment.
if I'm gonna cut one tree, I gotta call you.
Well, I wouldn't
And
have
say-
guessed, I just wouldn't have guessed that that was the intent.
Yeah,
Because it
I
isn't
wouldn't
written
either.
in there. So I would just suggest putting that
We
in
can
there.
certainly-
Yes.
If it was more
That-
than
that-
X number
that's
of
what it-
trees, because if
that's
I'm
what
just
we
cutting
mean.
one tree,
Yeah,
I gotta call you?
No, we don't want you to get a permit if you're cutting down one
$100.
tree.
$100 a tree. I already gotta pay $1,200.
Oh,
What's another
And,
$100?
and again, the last thing that I want us to do is make life difficult for our property owners. I mean, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to do business and achieve their dreams on their property. This is really just to correct a misconception in the town. Now, if I'm incorrect and people don't believe we ever required this or don't want us to do this, you don't have to do this, but we're just trying to make it
I
clear
don't
to
think
people.
we're arguing with you guys. I think
No.
we're just like reading it and providing our suggestions
I'm
of how
just-
to word it
yeah,
or how to
that's great.
change it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all.
I'm making sure that 10 years from now, somebody understands what heavy equipment means.
Well, it just doesn't even say that in here, right?
Yeah.
It just says lot clearing or
Yes,
earth
lot clearing,
moving.
yes.
So I would say, lot clearing that requires heavy equipment or any lot clearing that requires heavy equipment.
Maybe I'm slow and.
I just
don't-
put
And
new,
I wouldn't
I just
require-
put new
I
construction.
don't think that needs a
Yeah.
permit, because to me, a
Simple.
permit, not the money, but to me, a permit means that the town wants to see what you're doing, review it first, and then give you the okay. That, to me, that's what I think of when I think permit, is that someone wants to see what your plan is and then give you the okay to do so.
Yeah,
But
we
for
would-
clearing the lot, if we don't have to know, like, if we don't want to say, yes, you can go clear your lot, if we don't want that step in place, like, we don't want the allowing someone to go clear it, if we want them to just go clear it, then to me, that would be more like just notifying the town that it's happening kind of
And
thing,
so
right?
Again, like, we can absolutely add the language to clarify that it's, lot clearing or earth moving activities that involve heavy equipment. So we'll absolutely add that if that's the planning board's.
But do
will.
you want it to be a permitted activity or,
We have to,
A free permitted activity.
yeah.
but does it have to be a permitted
Well,
activity or is it just something that you want notification on?
I think that by having a document, a permit that's in the file, everybody knows it's official.
That you said it's okay. That's
Yes.
the permit part,
Yes.
that the town said it's okay.
Yes.
So that you do want that step in for
Yeah,
lot clearing.
because
Plus you want to protect the residents, so.
that means we are aware that it's going on.
That's the
There
notification
may have
part.
been some conditions for some reason. Let's say it was over an acre and we want silt fences or something like that, or they need a stormwater permit from the state or something.
But doesn't a builder already know that?
Not necessarily.
Not if it's just a homeowner.
Or ignores it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just
Okay,
wanted
well,
to make
that
sure
does
that
happen
like
in
you
some
guys
cases.
were wanting
I
it
will
to
agree.
be a permit
Yeah.
and not just like you want to be notified, because.
Now, I would like to really.
But it
Explaining
shouldn't
it.
be $100 if you're already in a few months going to be applying for another permit. I mean, to
But
me, that's
sometimes
just another way.
these things go on for years.
Well, if it's over 6 months, is that enough time usually to get everything moving? 6 months, a year?
Between the two permits that you said in your example.
Well, the permit should be all one smooth run.
Yeah,
Get your zoning, take your zoning to West Carteret.
Yep.
Apply for your building permit, get your building permit, start the job.
Yeah.
But
But
if
if-
I get the permit in my hand, I'm running.
Yeah.
Well, septic.
But if you need a lot clearing permit,
Yeah, that's just another, you're throwing another cog in my wheel
Yeah.
that I'm already running to death for paperwork.
But, yeah.
I think to get a permit to clear a lot is unnecessarily clear. And you can put the verbiage, like you were saying, grinding the stump or something, new construction,
that would make sense.
just new construction.
I'm gonna
Not,
disagree with you, Ted. I know that through my years that
I'm
I've been
not
here
agreeing with
in
him
the town
anymore.
that.
I thought about it
Clear the
from a
lots
fee
and
perspective,
destroy
it
our
makes sense,
streets.
but I
And-
still
and
think
I
that
address
we
that
need
too.
a
We need to have
permit
some
for the
kind
lot
of
clearing,
fee
so
on
you.
I understand. Here's the problem there. The streets in Cape Carteret are so thin.
I understand
I
that.
don't think
Eh,
it should
but
be in there for clearing the street.
Canonsgate, you pay a
I
fee,
don't think
a
I-
deposit
That's
up
why I wish
front.
there was a definition
Yeah.
for clearing.
After
the
you're
lot.
done and CO the house, you get a hold of the HOA person,
Right.
you go out there and look at it.
Well, yeah, I think.
They refund you deposit.
if
But let me
you're
tell you what
in
happens
construction
there. Half the
work,
time
you're
you don't
gonna
get
have
your
heavy
deposit
equipment.
back.
You're not gonna go out there.
Well,
That's correct.
So I think the
I would
heavy
like for
equipment
them to
would
get their deposit
almost-
back if they haven't
Yes,
destroyed
it
our
is.
streets.
But
But
I unload
fine.
equipment on
Or-
ground. When I bring a low boy in, I back it onto the shoulder. I don't unload on the street. Anybody with common sense would not do that.
Well, it all depends on the area. But like I said,
Yeah.
they come in, they destroy our streets, and our PAL funds at that time, I don't know how Frank's PAL funds are now, they're low. So, we were taking PAL funds to repair damaged roads for our citizens that these builders had done.
I did one house, I forget over here, Julie probably remembers, when I tied the concrete into the street 1.5 inch thick. And I got my guys to go and asphalt the front back out of common decency.
Right. Everybody's not like that.
Well, true that, but you can't make this idiot proof.
Well, I know that, but
You
like
know,
over
it's
at
a
Paxton
very
Homes, we had a
big-
builder build a house.
I understand.
And
Anybody
he
in the.
built that home and there was a rut between his beautiful home and his brand new driveway on our street.
That's where you take civil action.
Well, if we had put money down on that gentleman when he built the home, that street wouldn't be looking like that, and it stayed like that forever.
May I speak?
Yes.
We used to have a policy, an ordinance in this town of a $250 deposit for any construction. And the town clerk at the time decided it was too much work and gave back all the deposits. I had one that I kept, periodically. I kept a permit. But we did have a deposit requirement.
But you know what, $250 a
That was
cover?
back then, when we
Yeah.
had one town clerk, one,
Yeah,
30 years ago.
That's for my time here.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm
That's
just
almost
saying.
before my time period. No, just kidding.
No.
I understand where you're going,
I
but
think we need to put a fee on anyone that goes in and clears a lot off.
Well, what about the yard maintenance people? They park all over the place
Yeah.
today.
well, with that being said, you need the garbage people put a fee on them for dropping all the hydraulic oil up and down the damn road, you know?
Well, I know as
You
a
can't fee
commissioner,
everybody to death.
my new
Yes.
roads got tore up because they built those homes down there.
Can we table this till next month
Yeah,
where we
let's
can
do
have a
that.
little more
I-
time to digest this?
I
Because
think-
Absolutely.
I would like it,
I'm
to be
making-
you can table it, but I'd like to have a fee put on anyone clearing off lots and building homes in our town.
You mean just on new construction?
Yes, because like I said, we took money where we should have been paving streets for the
Yes.
town to repair.
See, I
But
agree.
you don't mean
Damages.
homeowners clearing their own lots.
Like,
You mean,
me
like-
cutting down a couple trees or having somebody come in and cut down a tree in my yard with a bobcat. Do I have to come up and give you a big fee?
Let me say this to you right now. We're getting ready to have a bunch of townhouses built right over there on Old Taylor Nursery Road.
Yeah.
Which is
Now,
not
what
our
if-
street.
And what if they go out there and bust well, that's a
Well, it's
highway.
not ours, it's a highway.
I know
It's
that,
Taylor
but
Nation Road.
let's
I
say
bust
it was our street. I mean, we should be taking our PAL funds just for repairs of,
But they're only gonna do that if they have heavy equipment, is what
Yes.
you're saying. So I
Right.
think it would cover it if we said on new construction, or if you have heavy equipment
But you have
such
to
as a bobcat or stump grinder.
I use a bobcat or stump grinder to cut
I
down
just
one
think-
tree.
But you might mess up the road if you do that, even if you're a homeowner.
I motion to table it.
Yeah, I second that.
okay, we'll table it to the next meeting.
Okay, perfectly fine.
And Frank, give us some kind of estimate on a fee that if the road's busted up or how much it costs to pave.
And new construction and define heavy equipment. I guess
Yeah.
is the key.
We'll certainly tidy up the language about heavy equipment and clarifying that intent there, and we'll also give you an option on a road damage deposit. I suspect that'll generate a lot more discussion. That's probably.
'Cause I'd hate for
Well,
it
how
to
do you
go
feel
in
about
there
it?
like that, and then the people that knew the original intent leave, and then people are held to $100 fee to cut down a single tree. You know,
This was never meant this is a lot that is proposed for development, not,
So new construction, a lot
Yes.
for development.
Yes.
New construction
Yes.
development,
Not
maybe is what
somebody's
should be somehow
yard
put in there.
maintenance and the trees in their
Well,
property.
let
I
me tell you another situation I dealt with. We had
Oh, wait, table.
a large tree. It was a water oak tree and it had grown under our road over there on Sanderson Court.
This doesn't actually say.
And when they
Wait,
went to
wait,
pull it
wait.
up,
It
the
doesn't say
roots,
for-
when they pulled the
Yeah,
tree
that's
out,
where I
it just
think
tore
we're
our road up.
taking this.
And of course, it was our expense.
New construction.
You know what I'm saying?
What court was that?
We're over in Sanders. What street was that?
There was-
We don't have a
down
sound.
Country Club.
I'm
Doreen
asking.
Sound
Yeah,
song.
that's all.
I don't know.
And they hired one person.
It's the first, when you come into Star Hill, it's the first street on the right, Frank.
Asphalt up
He has
there,
a-
the story was right. That's
And he also has a little jack thing. But they
Where's the
also have
hot
layers, because obviously they're.
Let me show you a map. I don't know where you're talking
So
about.
if it's not gonna mess
On
up
the
the grass,
surf.
it's obviously not
It's
gonna
on,
mess up the
right
road. And the guy.
Let me get
Six
some
houses.
glasses. Where are we?
Here's Star Hill
Yeah,
Drive.
but that was technically heavy equipment.
Where's Old Taylor Notion coming
Here.
to the backside?
Here, don't mark on
If that makes
Okay.
any sense.
What's
Because
this,
if
what's
it's not
this
gonna
street?
crush
Unless
grass-
the
Clubhouse.
bobcat has rubber wheels.
Not the clubhouse. What's this?
Pine Lakes.
I mean, that's just.
Pine
unless
Lakes,
it's not gonna
that's
crush the
Star Hill
grass, obviously
Drive.
It's not gonna crush the
This is
asphalt.
Star
It
Hill.
says Pine
Yeah,
Lake.
that's
Is
just
that
kinda my
what Carol
thinking.
Patterson lived on?
I don't know. I just
All
know.
right, so are we
So-
moving on to the next one now?
Yeah, so if you all have tabled that, we'll
Yes,
address those
that's
issues
perfect.
when we bring it back to you
Thank
next
you.
month, including the security deposit fee for road damage, et cetera, stuff.
Perfect.
Item number 7 is a pretty significant issue for the planning board to consider and ultimately the board of commissioners. Certainly you all are aware that there's a board of adjustment meeting tomorrow evening regarding an appeal of staff's decision that a tobacco and vape shop is not a permitted use in our B20 zoning district. And so that issue, which will be decided by the Board of Adjustment tomorrow night, or perhaps in the next 30 days, or may even go to the court system. I expect it may go to the court system ultimately. That basically led to a consideration of, are there particular uses that we should clarify in the table of permitted and special uses as to whether, where they are allowed in the town? So the ordinance amendment that you have before you essentially says it's very difficult to just simply prohibit a particular use in the town.
I don't know why, it was done for years.
I
Yeah.
think that was taken out because we have restrictions.
Because some people had to jump through hoops to get other stuff in the past.
You know,
Well-
like the motorcycle gang.
Under the law, it's very difficult to simply say you can't have, for example, a strip club anywhere in the community. You have to have regulations that would theoretically allow that in certain locations in the community. So at any rate, the approach that's included in this ordinance is there are several uses that were identified in the CAMO Land Use and Comprehensive Plan that people wanted to discourage in the town. In addition to that, with the recent discussions about the tobacco and the vape shop, there's a desire, I think, by some in our community to discourage those uses as well.
Yes.
And then there are other uses that, over the course of conversations over the last couple of months have come out that people, I believe, have a desire to discourage as well. So if you look at the ordinance amending the table of permitted and special uses, you'll see that the basic approach is to take these uses that people seem to want to discourage and allow them only in the B30 zoning district. So our B30 zoning district really consists of one parcel. It's where the Culligan facility is on Highway 24 right now. The rest of Cape Carteret, and Julie, could you pull the zoning map up for me? The rest of the commercial properties in Cape Carteret are zoned B20, and they're indicated in red
And B10.
on your zoning map. And then we have a few parcels in green that are zoned B10. So the difference between B10 and B20 and B30 is essentially that B10 is for very low impact commercial uses. It's generally for offices for the most part. It's probably the best way to characterize it. Things that would have a really low impact on any adjacent residential properties. B20 is in the red. That's our retail, large commercial zoning district. That's kind of your typical retail stuff, the kind of things you see out there, a grocery store, a fast food restaurant, a Starbucks, a home improvement, all those sorts of things. The B30 zone is actually subtitled light industrial, and that's really intended for uses that maybe have a greater impact on the community and on residential properties. And you can look at the table of permitted and special uses, and you can see the things that are allowed in B30 currently. You know, for example, things like car washes, things like furniture manufacturing and woodworking, things like greenhouses, heavy equipment parking, laboratories. There's a whole, I could go through the whole list for you there, but the intent behind the B30 is to take all those things that are going to have a bigger impact on the community and restrict them to a particular
That's the
zone.
way they look.
So with all of these additional uses that have been identified in the last month or two,
Hey,
with all the additional uses that have been identified in the last couple of months that people maybe find less desirable or more impactful, the approach with this ordinance amendment is to simply say, okay, we're only going to allow these in B30. And then consequently, we're not going to allow it in B20, or we're not going to allow it in B10. We're only going to allow it in B30. And keep in mind that even though there's only one parcel right now that's zoned B30, certainly someone could come along and say, hey, I want to rezone the parcel next to White Oak Elementary School to B30. And then that would go through the process with the planning board and the board of commissioners. But this is a way, I think, to really kind of limit all of these uses that I think people find concerning in the community. And so they're all spelled out in your packet. So for example, this ordinance amendment would list alcoholic beverage stores as a permitted use in B30. They're already permitted in B20. So that seems rather logical, but I'll let you all make that judgment.
But why, if it's allowed in B20, would you even add it to
Yeah.
B30.
Why does it matter?
You don't have to if you don't want to, but typically the B30 is going to allow the most broadest range of commercial uses, and then B20 allows less, and then B10 allows less.
But if it's already in
Is
20, why would it
because it's
matter?
larger?
You can certainly pull that off the list if you want. I was just simply
Yeah.
trying to look at the whole table of permitted
Yeah.
uses and say, okay, we allowed in B20, why would we not allow it in B30?
Well, you would allow it in
right?
both. I mean, if it's B20, it would be B30
So
too. I
wouldn't
mean,
you want an alcoholic beverage store to be a special use permit though? That way
But
there
it's
would
already in B20
be a,
right now.
Yeah.
There's already one.
yeah, but
And
does that
B30
prohibit
would
you
be
from being
the
able to make it a special use permit in the future?
No, you can absolutely change
Yeah,
this.
that- it
The Board of
wouldn't
Commissioners
change.
can change
But the
this
county
at any
commissioners
time
can
in the
also-
future. But
Well, I just mean like from his example, if you wouldn't want an alcoholic beverage store right next to the elementary
Yeah.
school, wouldn't you want to have it a special use?
So currently, you could have an alcoholic beverage store next to the.
Right.
next to
But
the
it has to be
That's
so
what I
many
mean, is
feet
that-
away.
But if it was a
So
now
special
you
use
can't.
permit, you could evaluate on a case-by-case basis, right?
You could in that
Right.
scenario, yeah, but,
But an ABC store has to be so many feet away from the school anyway.
yeah, so I tell you what, let me ask you this. I wouldn't get too hung up on an ABC store at this point in time. I just want you to understand the logic behind the ordinance here.
Yes.
And then if you want to pick and choose these things and say, hey, we don't want to allow them there, or we do want to allow them somewhere else, that's perfectly fine with me. I was just simply trying to make the best effort based on all the feedback. So all of these things that are listed here, boat repairs, boat storage, body piercing parlors, dry cleaning operations, dumpster storage yards, equipment repairs, food trucks is something we need to come back to.
Yes.
Golf cart sales and services, heavy manufacturing, laundromat, loan stores, payday loan stores, pawn shops, self-storage facilities, solid waste operator facilities, tattoo shops. This ordinance would allow all of those things to be constructed and operated in Cape Carteret by right, permitted use in the B30 zone, which currently is that one parcel where the Culligan is. So they would have to request a rezoning. It would go through a process. There's another list of uses on here that would only be allowed in the B30 zone with a special use permit. So not only are they limited just to that one parcel currently, they'd have to go through another round of review by the Board of Commissioners. Those are things like adult entertainment, heavy industrial uses, a homeless shelter, salvage yards, sexually oriented businesses, i.e. a strip club or something of that nature, smoke, vape, drug accessories and paraphernalia, and then tobacco and vape shops. So if a business comes to us and wants to open up one of those 7 items that are listed there, we would say, hey, that's allowed in the B30 zone, and you have to get a special use permit. You're welcome to request a special use permit to put it on the Culligan property if you reach an agreement with that property owner, and we'll send that through the process with the Board of Commissioners. Or you're welcome to request rezoning of another parcel in town to B30, because bottom line is we only allow those uses in that B30 zone. So if anybody shows up to town hall and says, hey, I want to put a tobacco and vape shop, for example, next to the ribeyes, our response is going to be that's not a permitted use in the B20 zone. And that's all the red that's up on there. So that's the framework here and the approach. For some of these, we actually added some additional requirements. We essentially said that addiction rehab centers, adult entertainment, homeless shelters, sexually oriented businesses, smoke, vape, drug accessories and paraphernalia, and tobacco and vape shops, not only do they have to exist within that zoning district, B30, and they also have to get a special use permit, but they also have to be 1,500 feet away from things like a school or a library or a museum or a park
need to
where
add this.
children might congregate and therefore might be exposed to this. So
You might want to add massage parlors.
What?
Massage
W- w-
parlors.
Oh, look, I like my weekly massage.
Yeah, I like my weekly massage.
I got one at the end of my street.
Yeah, and so, like, for example, I want to say that we currently allow massage parlors.
Yeah,
Let
we got
me
one
double
down
check.
at
So,
the
so we allow massage parlors in the B10 and the B20 zone right now. Now, if you think
No,
we shouldn't,
No,
or,
we should keep it right there.
okay, yeah. So when
Well,
I drafted this, my intent was not to remove
May I stop?
those things. It was to clarify some of the things that people find more concerning. So.
Massage parlors have been a problem in Emerald, hasn't it?
I have no idea.
And then, well,
Well, so, I mean, there's a couple things you need to think
Legally.
about. So there's a couple issues here, right? The town of Cape Carteret or the town of Emerald Isle or any town is really only concerned with the land use, not concerned with the zoning department,
Okay.
Julie, me, you. We're only concerned with the land use. If there's illegal activity going on in that business, that's a law enforcement issue. And
Right.
we're certainly going to tell the police department to go there, or we're going to call the appropriate
Right.
state law enforcement agency. But your role is just the land use.
Well,
There
Well,
are
like a
different
drift-
definitions.
parlor
What you
in the
might call
streets
massage parlor, I
every
call
week, that's
physical
one.
therapy.
right, the physical
I
therapy.
don't think
but,
anybody's
like
saying that we
adult
wouldn't
centers
want
and
a
having-
massage parlor.
Yeah,
I think what she's,
that's what I call it.
I think what the
physical
intent would be is for there to be a special
That's
use
physical
permit
therapy,
required for
not-
certain
That's
types of
right.
businesses.
Yeah, it
Just
got
so
the
that
Let
mind
me ask
they
you a
end up
question,
in a
Frank.
location that you want
Why
them
would
in.
the planning
Because
board
like
not
Frank
review
mentioned,
these things
anything
before you
on
all
here can
approve
change
them?
zone.
I mean,
Well,
just like
anything.
this
So,
incident,
But you know where
If
drift
we,
is.
This has
if
been
we allowed
approved
it
by
as
you all,
permitted,
and we didn't get to review it.
No,
then all they have to do
Yeah,
is
so-
give them the permit
I mean,
requirement.
Yeah, so-
And it-
so again-
anywhere on here, so anything that's permitted
A
on this list
variance.
could literally end up anywhere.
No, it's
on the
actually,
map.
so let
Unless
me
it's
tell you
special
what's
use
happening with
permit.
what has happened with the tobacco and vape shop and what will happen going forward.
Okay.
So the applicant applied for a permit, and you'll see in our table of permitted and special uses, we allow retail sales.
Yeah.
General retail sales are a permitted use in the town of Cape Carteret. The applicant applied for a permit for a tobacco and vape shop. Ultimately, we did not issue that permit. What we said is that that's more specific. We need some additional clarification, and we advised the applicant that you should request a text amendment by going through the planning board and the board of commissioners,
Right.
or you can appeal the staff's decision. So essentially, the
Right.
staff's decision was, we don't allow a tobacco or a
Right.
vape shop in Cape Carteret.
Right.
The applicant disagrees with that, is
Okay.
appealing that to the Board of
Yeah.
Adjustment. They
Right.
will
Board of
hear that
Adjustments
case
needs-
tomorrow night,
Right.
and they'll decide within the next 30 days whether the town staff got it right or the town staff got it wrong. And they have an attorney advising them.
I'm sure
And
they
so in the case of the other uses, if it's listed as a permitted use and there's new construction of a new commercial building involved, then yeah, you will review the plans for the new commercial building. If it's a permitted use and they're moving into an existing building, that won't come to the planning board if it's a permitted use. Now, if it's a special use, it'll go to the Board of Commissioners because they're tasked with reviewing those special uses. So you have to understand the
So
law
we
and
need
how
to
it's
make
structured.
a lot of these things special use.
If that's your desire, you certainly can do that. I will
Yeah.
just advise the planning board that we went through a lengthy exercise probably about a year ago to eliminate a lot of special uses and make them permitted
Yes.
uses.
That's correct.
And that's,
And
so
we
that
did
certain
that-
people, when they tried to apply for certain things, didn't have to jump through so many hoops that it was absolutely ridiculous.
And that's ultimately the balance you and the
Right.
Board of Commissioners have to strike, right? Protecting the
here's a-
community versus making it easy for people to develop.
Madam Chairman.
Yes. Please.
I'd like to suggest we remove sales retail from the list of permitted use in B20. Remove it. And when somebody comes in, wants a permit for a certain type of sale, see if it's on the list. And if it's not, let them go through the same thing we had to do. Had to get a zoning change for a go-kart track. Had to get a zoning change for a golf range, driving range. You know, just remove retail sales. That'll remove any ambiguity that would allow somebody to come in and apply for that.
I think we can certainly take that approach. If that's your will, we can package that up and take to the Board of Commissioners. I would think that if we were going to do that, we'd probably want to spend some more time thinking about the ones, because you don't want to slow someone down and make them, if, for example, they're occupying a vacant storefront in the shopping center, and it's otherwise something the community would value and benefit from, you may not necessarily want to slow them down and make them go through this process and spend another 45 or 60 days going through that process. So I think you just want to be careful about that.
Yes, you
So-
do, but if you could make it specific enough, if you could say, for example, a restaurant or what is liable to be applied for over there. something of that nature. But I just am totally against having in Cape Carteret some of these permitted uses, even if they're in a B30.
Right,
And
because
I
But you
don't
can't-
he
but
just
you-
said that zone can
Well,
change.
Yeah, but you-
It can
true.
change.
That's true.
Right.
But the zone, the zoning on a piece of property can change.
Right.
But I don't care if it's in a B30. I don't want a dumpster storage yard in Cape
I marked that
Carteret.
one too. I already marked all the ones that I think should be special
Well, let's
use,
see,
and that was
let's-
one of mine.
Well, I think, I don't want it at all. I don't want heavy manufacturing.
But
I
how
put that
you-
one too.
But some things, how are you going to stop if they're legally, my question is just this. If it's legal by the state, okay, and they fall into all of the guidelines and restrictions that happen, how can you then, how could you, me, her, him, anyone decide then what is right for the town and what is wrong for the
Cape
town?
Carteret has done that for years.
I think we can. I think
So-
we do.
See, and I disagree with that one.
Yeah,
But that's just,
so legally, it's problematic to just simply say, we don't allow
Yeah.
these uses.
No, it could be a
You've
special
gotta
use
provide-
permit.
You could do that, and that was the
Right.
approach
Right,
in
right.
this ordinance amendment, is for the things that people
then you
probably
have-
find more concerning, they're listed as a special use permit to make them go through an additional hurdle there.
Well,
And you could take all of those things that I listed that would be permitted, you can make them all special uses if you like.
I think that's the way you would have to do it, where they have to jump in more.
Is that the dumpster place could find a location somewhere in Cape Carteret that would make you go, that would be fine. Maybe they would find a location that it would probably not, but maybe, right?
now.
But the special use permit would allow you to evaluate their specific circumstance, right?
That's
Like
correct.
where it's at, what it's gonna look like, where it's gonna, all that.
If it
That's-
interferes with somebody or impacts somebody else's.
That's
own
why I
right.
think that the things that are very impactful, which could be like a lot of things on here that are currently permitted, should be special use, in my opinion. I marked down a bunch of them already.
Yeah, so
On the list.
that first list that I read to you that has probably 15 different things on there, I listed them or suggested that they be permitted in B30 only. But if you want to make another level of review, then you should absolutely change them to special use permit.
The reason why is because not everything on here that's B30 or not B30 is gonna be that way in 5 years or 3 years. Like the zones can change. So if the zone changes, like for the town center, a lot of zones are changing for that. And now all of a sudden what we would decide today would be okay in the B30 that's listed on there might not be what's B30 in the future. And then all of a sudden that becomes a permitted use.
Yeah, but all of those rezonings or any creation of a new town center zoning district, they all have to go through this planning board and through the board of commissioners. And so, for example, we would never include any of these uses as a permitted use in the town center zoning district, because the intent is to really kind of limit them to a very small area here. But that's ultimately something you all and your successors will need to be mindful of as you're reviewing new ordinances, rezonings, districts, et cetera.
Can I ask you a
Why
question?
why has, I think back when we did the vet office and everything, I think we had, the planning board worked with all that. They worked with the food line
Like food trucks.
renovation and everything.
Food
Why is
trucks
it all of a
and-
sudden not reviewed by the planning board?
How do you do
Yeah, so
food truck?
they will be,
What
if,
happened?
if it's new construction, if there's a new commercial building
Because it's
proposed,
all is going to move around.
then that will be reviewed by the planning board and ultimately by the board of commissioners.
Well,
That-
food line, I mean, those food remodels, and we had to review that.
Have they done it?
Yeah,
They've
so
done it.
when the UDO was
So now how is
amended,
it going to be?
Well, they've
2-3 years ago, whenever that comprehensive process, they actually removed that review for the planning board, the board of commissioners, and delegated that to staff. I will tell you that
Well,
my
they might
my
be able to.
approach, and I wrote this into the ordinance about the townhomes, is that I'm going to take them to the planning board and ultimately the board of commissioners in the future. But technically, our ordinance is a little unclear on that. But we just haven't had any new commercial buildings in the time I've been here. But if we get one, like we got townhouses, that
Right.
came to you, that went
Yes,
to the
you
board of commissioners. And if we get, say, a new restaurant and a new building, then yes, we're absolutely going to bring it through the planning board and the board of commissioners. But for example, if Applebee's wants to open up in the existing Wells Fargo building, we're probably not going to take that through the process if they meet all the parking requirements and signage and all that kind of stuff, because it's an existing building.
But they'd have to still go through the requirement for septic.
Yeah, absolutely. We would not issue a permit if they didn't have the septic permit from them. Yeah, so, and there's all these different things that conspire together and affect the outcome of the process. The reason the tobacco and vape shop didn't come, if that was a brand new building proposed as standalone, I probably still would have told them it's not a permitted use, and you can request a text amendment, or you can appeal our determination. But if it was a permitted use and they wanted to build a new building, it would come through the normal process through you and the Board of Commissioners.
I'm thinking though, the old way was, like, we would have been able to review that before you, before it came, you would have had to put it before the planning board. Before, and the old rules.
I'm not sure what your rules were prior to this UDO, but typically if someone, in my experience, if a business is moving into an existing building and they meet all the requirements, that's a staff level review. Now, if it's a new construction building, then absolutely it's got to go through the process.
Now, they're gonna have to probably remodel that building over there, so that,
Maybe everybody else reads faster.
Yeah, they did not, when they just had the discussions with us, they did not propose any exterior alterations whatsoever. They actually proposed very few interior renovations, if I recall correctly, so.
well, I'm gonna say this, we had, the doctor's office that's in the shopping center wanted to use our town, and it had to go before the planning board for them to move in there because they were remodeling and not meeting septic requirements, remember? And
You
then,
said they wanted to use our town. What is it?
yeah, the doctor's office before Mike Curtis's old office.
Oh, you're talking about next door.
Yeah, our town
Oh,
building.
building.
Our
Okay.
town building,
But it's
the doctor's
still
office had to come in, but the planning board had to review all that. To where, and that's an existing building, and it wasn't because it was a town building, but it was an existing building. So now, we got an existing building, and this company's coming in, and the planning board's not reviewing.
They're against there being
There's no requirement as it exists for the,
Yeah, there's nothing in the zoning ordinance, to my reading, that directs me to bring.
Well, don't you think maybe we should change that?
We certainly can change whatever you'd like to change, but again, there was no permit issued for that. The ordinance that's here tonight will not affect whatever happens with the current application for the tobacco and vape shop. That is subject to the rules in place as of today, as of the date they applied. The intent behind this ordinance amendment is to make sure that we've got something stronger, so that in case somebody shows up tomorrow and wants to do one again, that we can have a stronger legal position to say, no, you can't do this. So I know there's some desire by some of the elected officials and some in the community to make sure that we don't get another application in for this. So
Yes.
we can't control what happened in the past. This is an attempt to address issues, put us on stronger legal footing for any additional requests that may come. So, but we can absolutely
My
adjust it
question
in
is,
any
I'm
way
gonna
you want.
Read through all this to understand what all we've got. Regular use, special use, not special use, what should be special use, what shouldn't be special
the
use.
issue is the timeliness of this to stop any future, right?
Yeah, so I think if you're not worried about the timeliness, then you could absolutely take as many meetings as you'd like and go through it and tweak it any way you want. If you want to make some tweaks tonight, we can do that too. One other option you may want to think about is if you're reasonably comfortable with it, you might want to recommend it go through for consideration by the Board of Commissioners and still revisit it in the future, right? Because I will tell you that this ordinance puts us in a better legal position than what we have on the books currently.
But see, I think that's a problem because, again, what was done in the past is the past. And if that's still not been cleared up yet, then you don't make something, I don't know.
I think that's a
I'm
good point,
totally-
is that you can make the changes that are proposed here now, and then everything can be reviewed again in the future for future changes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That can
And
always
that's
happen.
it. And that's a good point to bring up, that there may not, the advantage of deliberating on every little thing
that's
may
probably-
not outweigh the advantage of having this go through now,
Right.
right? Yeah,
So I disagree with
so that
that.
makes sense.
And so again, just so everyone is clear, the Board of Adjustment and their decision, and even a future decision by the court system, will be based on the ordinance in place at the time they apply. This has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on the current issue being considered by the
Except
Board of
for the
Adjustment.
court system could look at what, I don't know, I disagree with that, knowing what the court system sometimes goes back and looks at.
Well, all I want to clarify for you is that the current issue will be judged against the ordinances in place on the date that they applied. This
Correct.
will not be considered in that.
And what's our attorney saying on our side?
Yeah, so because of the concern that's been in the community in recent weeks, I drafted this ordinance. I shared it with the town attorney to make sure he was comfortable with it, to make sure it would be legal, put us in a better legal position. He believes that it will. He believes this is an effective approach. Having said that, you can absolutely tweak this any way you want. And you can spend as much time on it as you want, whether that's now or next month or 6 months from now. So please, if you think, for example, that heavy manufacturing should not be permitted in B30, that you should make it a special use permit, we can easily make that change tonight.
Yes, but I'm concerned with a vacant building in the strip shopping center. If we don't recommend this, and if the town board doesn't pass it at the next meeting, we could face this in another location in the shopping center.
But is there a vacant place in the shopping center?
Well,
I'm just
that's not
asking
the
if there
issue.
is.
I'm not saying there is, I'm not saying there isn't, but I know that there are vacant lots in the commercial property at the point
Mhm.
between 24 and Taylor Nation Road. Vacant lot at the gym.
Mhm.
So,
We had a lot of things that have been stripped away from us here in the town, so that's why we haven't gotten all these type of things in our town.
But there was
So
a
we gotta
tobacco
put it
shop.
back.
But there was a cigar shop in the strip mall at one time. What is the difference between a tobacco shop that sells cigars and a store that sells?
THC.
Yeah,
That's
and
the
the
difference.
big green
But it's legal by
marijuana
in North
leaf,
Carolina.
bright green marijuana leaf that they
If
put
North
on their
Carolina made it
window.
legal.
Vape machines. Cigar stores
They-
don't sell vape machines.
Some of them
Not
do.
the cigar stores that I would patronize.
What was
I
it?
agree
It's
with
not
that,
that
but-
cute little,
Where was it?
it's not the cute little cigar
That's
shop
not
in
up to me to
Swansboro.
decide that.
That might be all right, but like, we're
Uh,
kind of
this
talking
is
about like
above
those
my
junky,
pay grade.
like
Deal with these
Vaporama.
This is above my pay.
One other thing I just
I
want to
think he
make
wants
sure,
to speak.
I want to make sure that I point this out for you, because this is important also. So at the same time, this ordinance removes food trucks as a permitted
Yeah, I
use
saw that.
in the B20 and in the B10 zoning district. So, but what it does allow is if someone's having a special event, if it's like
Yeah.
a town festival, or if it's a business having a grand opening
Right.
event or some special event,
Car show.
the food truck is, if car show, food truck would be allowed then. But what this would prohibit is we would not allow food trucks to just show up in front of the Circle
Yeah.
K or the Lowe's
But
Home Improvement.
Could they do a special use permit in those two zones instead of just completely removing it?
We could, if that's what you would like to do.
Well, it would just make sense to, I mean, if you made it an option, they could apply for, and then if it's like, oh, that's not a good place to put your food truck all the time, then they could be denied the special use permit, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Special use permits are a much more complicated process. They're a quasi judicial hearing. There's a whole other set of legal standards. It takes a lot of staff effort to process those, in addition to the time and the expertise required for ultimately the Board of Commissioners to make a decision. That's one of the reasons I'm not crazy
Maybe there
about
should
special
be
use
like,
permits.
food trucks should have their own special use permit
Okay,
process then.
listen,
He wanted to speak.
Yeah,
Can
I'm
we,
sorry.
can we
I just
ask?
wanted to make sure I didn't forget
Yeah,
to tell you that
yeah.
part, so.
Can I make a motion to table it till next
And I
month?
second that.
what,
And think about it so we can press on?
Yes.
well,
I will second
Cause
that.
I got other things I need to be doing.
let me say this. Why don't we approve this and
I won't
then,
be voting.
and we will upgrade it and review it, and maybe the
But if
commissioners
it's not the
can
right
review
thing,
it.
why would we?
Yeah.
Yeah, if
To
it's
To
not
stop
correct,
it
why?
from
This is
happening
to
somewhere
stop-
else.
But he already made a motion to
Okay.
table it, and I seconded it.
And I vote against it.
I vote against it.
Laura,
Everybody take a vote.
Laura, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'm not ready to agree to it right now.
Well, then anybody walks in here tomorrow and wants to put
Then we have to roll
a
that
strip
dice.
mall, or, I mean,
Well,
a strip
Then
shop.
that's
Okay,
the dice
so-
we roll.
Are you voting for or against the motion? Are you voting against adoption and tabling?
What I'm,
I wouldn't want to put this in the way that I wouldn't vote for this the way that it reads
what I'm
right
saying,
now.
can we adopt it the way it is now and upgrade it at the next meeting after review?
I won't vote for it. With the way it's written, I won't vote
I
for
would say let's tweak it next
Yes.
month, talk about it and do it the right
Yes.
way, not
it. Not
halfway.
half-ass it. Pardon my language. I
Yeah.
apologize for that.
Well, let me just look.
So
through it.
as
Okay,
right
before
as-
I vote, let me look through
Okay,
what's being
I understand
proposed here again.
the motion, I still, so it voted against me. So
Laura
as of
hasn't-
right now,
Laura
if the-
hasn't voted.
as of right now,
I would just suggest to you that there's significant concern among the Board of Commissioners to try to prevent
Yes,
this
but
from
our job
happening
isn't just
again.
what they want. Our
Understood.
job is what we believe the town should be going in a direction, and if something isn't exactly correct the way I feel, I'm not gonna vote for it. I don't care who put me on the board.
So
Well,
can I just
so as of
clarify a
tomo-
couple of things that are being changed on the table before I vote?
can I, yeah, let me say something to you. If we don't pass this tonight, then
I'm gonna
the
make my own
adult
opinion, though.
entertainment could come in here tomorrow.
I don't think that's gonna happen that quick.
But
So
it's
Well,
going from not
I'm
being,
giving a hypothetical, Ted,
You can't use it
so
right
it's,
now, I
lis-
can't.
can I ask a question about that?
and then we
please?
could change it later.
Adult entertainment is one that I had a question on. So right now, it's not listed at all anywhere. Is that why? Because like right now, it says it's got it underlined like it's being added as a special use permit for the V30. Was it not listed at all before, or was it a permitted use before?
yeah, so
Or,
So what our ordinance says is that when someone proposes a particular use, we have to look for whether or not it's specifically listed. And if it's not specifically listed, we have to try to match it up with the closest category. So if someone came in and wanted to open a sexually oriented business, for example, we'd go through the list of permitted uses and we'd see if there's anything that's kind of close and kind of fits with that. That's a kind of a unique example because in our regular code of ordinances, not part of the UDO, we have some very specific standards for sexually oriented businesses
That's not allowed.
that are very, very detailed, probably 8-10 pages long or whatever. So in that particular case, but whenever someone comes in and applies for a particular use, we try to find it on the list. And if it's not on the list, we go with the closest thing that's there. And what our ordinance says is if we still can't assign it to the closest category, the applicant can either request a text amendment and come to you all to essentially do the same thing we're doing tonight, or they can appeal to the Board of Adjustment that the staff denied them. And that's really what happened in this case. Like what they're saying is, hey, this is retail sales.
Right.
That's allowed. We disagree with your decision, town manager, so we're going to the Board of Adjustment. So anybody can do that on any use.
next question is, if it's listed on there with nothing in the table at all, does that just mean that it's not permitted at all, either by special or not special use? So if you listed adult entertainment on the list, but then none of the boxes are filled in with anything next to it, would that mean that it's simply not
It's already not allowed.
permitted
It's
by
already not
special?
allowed.
On the list.
It's
Well, it
already-
is, it's on the list as a special
Yeah,
use
exactly.
permit for
But
B30.
right now, it's not allowed at all. So why would you then put it as a special use?
Well, that's why I'm asking, because I would rather not have it as a special
That's
use.
just town ordinance, that's not the UDO though. If you had the town attorney,
So,
if we had the town attorney review this and bless it, he's very knowledgeable to keep us out of lawsuits.
Well, I didn't get an answer to my question.
yeah, so again, and I can't tell you, no, it wouldn't be allowed, right? Probably what we would say is that, you need to go to the planning board and the Board of Commissioners and request a text amendment to allow this. But the sexually oriented business one is not a good example because we have other rules in place in our code of ordinances that deal with business regulations, right? But like, for example, the applicant could make the case that it fits under one of these other categories here. And then we would have to say, yeah, I think you're right, but you got to meet all these other requirements, or, no, I don't agree with you, request a text amendment. They may appeal the decision to the Board of Adjustment. The intent behind this ordinance is to be clear with people, to be able, and I'll give you the perfect example. So we had numerous inquiries about whether or not a car wash could go at the Wells Fargo building. These car washes, you've seen them, they're making tons of money, right? The one in Swansboro is a line all the time, right? People wanted to put a car wash at the Wells Fargo building. And so we go to the table of permitted and special uses and we look at car washes and we say, hey, you know what? They're only allowed in the B30 zone. It's not allowed in B20. You're welcome to request a rezoning if you'd like, but I don't know what the outcome of that process would be. So taking that example, that's the same approach that we're applying here, is to be able to tell the next person who comes and says, hey, I want to open a tobacco and vape shop. We want to be able to say, hey, that's fine. We only allow it in B30. You can apply for a B30 property, or you can apply for a rezoning, or you can apply for a text amendment. It puts us in a stronger legal position to say, no, we don't allow that.
Can I ask you a question? All right, it's already, sorry, he's made a motion. We second it. Robert's rules are how long
Is
do
it
we have
Is
to discuss?
it your
We haven't
vape
made a
business?
final
Is that
vote.
why you're
No, I'm
okay.
not even
I feel like
talking
you're
about
trying to
this.
rush
No.
this.
I'm trying to
rush
slow
this
us down
along.
so I can read through everything so I can understand it.
Okay.
I'm trying not to.
But she called for a vote.
Yeah,
And
it
I
was-
still have
But
to,
he had
I
already
have to
tabled it by
vote.
that time.
She
I
has
thought.
to vote
Yeah,
on it.
I
exactly.
think the chairperson didn't recognize his motion.
Oh,
So I
okay.
don't
All right.
think it
All right.
stood because he made a motion and you seconded
worries.
it before.
I didn't request the motion because I was trying to argue to do this for now and change. Because of the attorney's review and the lawsuits that could affect us. So,
Yeah,
So
really.
Do we continue?
So I think the value judgment you need to make is if you think that the risk of another one coming along is not significant, you certainly can wait and take your time and table it. If you think that risk is more imminent, you can approve something tonight and then improve it later on. It's really, that's the value judgment that you all need to make.
Yeah, and I'm on board with that, and I'm tracking with that. I'm just gonna
So I think
ask a
we
couple
need to-
more questions
There's a
about.
whole bunch of things that I need to read through before
Well,
I can make.
this is
Emotional.
this is the foundation and our attorneys reviewed it to help us to prevent from lawsuits. And we can, like Frank just, the town manager said, that we can upgrade and make changes to this.
I understand, but if it's not, I understand we can make changes to something, but if something is not what I agreed to begin with, I'm not going to vote for it. Like if I don't have it read through it and I don't understand it, I'm not voting for it. I apologize for that. But I believe that I was put here to make sure that I read through everything and I understood it completely before I made a vote. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
Okay, what do you not understand?
There's a
about it?
lot of special use stuff that's been put back on there that like the adult business, if it's already in there where there isn't a use on it, like there's
It
ordinance
wasn't
against
in
it.
there. It wasn't in there before.
Yeah, why are we putting it in there now?
Well,
There's,
so that it's specifically listed, so that all
But-
those applications that Frank
but there's,
talked about.
but there's
would-
already ordinance in there saying that it's not allowed in the town.
Is there
Yes.
an ordinance?
He said there was 8 pages.
No, it doesn't say they're not allowed. It says they're
It just-
allowed if they meet all these lengthy requirements.
Yeah, I mean,
So in other words, they're not
the
allowed.
town ordinance is after you get it,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to go by the town ordinances. But the basics is right here.
Hmm.
Is that?
I thought the town
understand?
ordinance were kind of the town
Okay, now
ordinance.
what's an R10 to you?
There's lots of R10s.
I understand, but I mean.
An R10 or a B10?
R10 permits.
I thought we were looking at B10s.
Well, we're looking at R10s, we're looking at R20s, we're looking at R30s.
I thought they were B.
R10 is spatial.
Yeah. And then I thought B was what we're looking at for businesses.
And we're looking at, well, there's some changes in each category.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I haven't had time to read through the whole thing.
Okay, what do you understand about R20?
At this point, not much. Because I haven't read the paperwork.
I'm talking
for
about R20 as a whole. I'm not talking about.
R20 or B20?
I'm asking you about R20.
Well, that's residential. We're talking about business right here.
Well, we're not just, these ordinances are just not businesses.
We're talking about business ordinance.
We're talking about R30s, R20s, and R10s,
Everything.
all three of them.
Yeah, so I guess maybe the simplest way to put it is, let's just take the sexually oriented business as an example, right? Actually, I don't want to take that because we've got some
Yeah,
other.
we already have
regulations. But
regulations
let's
against that.
take the dumpster storage yards as an example.
All right.
So if someone said, I want to open up a dumpster storage yard in Cape Carteret, we would say, okay, that's permitted in the B30 zone. You can build it on the Culligan site if you can secure control of that site. And you still have to meet setbacks and all the other requirements in the UDO. And in that case, if there's new construction, it'd go through the planning board and ultimately the board of commissioners. It's very unlikely that someone would proceed with that. If they couldn't make it work on that site, they'd have to find another site, secure control of that site. They'd have to apply for a rezoning and come through the planning board and come through the board of commissioners. And then they'd have to cross that hurdle, realizing that if someone wanted to rezone, for example, the blue parcel next to White Oak Elementary School to B30, you all are going to have a very robust discussion about, well, hey, wait a second, I don't think we want to allow all these things on that
That's
parcel
I
correct.
think
there, right?
that's exactly why I'd be okay with what we're doing here.
So my point is
Yeah,
that
I-
just
I-
said.
And y'all can vote for it, that's perfectly fine, I'm just gonna abstain from voting.
it creates a system where it's unlikely that it would ever go through, but not impossible.
Yes.
And therefore
But the
puts us in a
majority
more
will have it.
legally defensible position. So
See,
So-
right now, the planning board had no regulations over what's being done.
This is the only B30.
Yeah, I know.
And almost all
Used to
of
be
the,
Reynolds.
almost all of the changes are for B30.
Mhm.
And it's just that one.
And
So, and any zoning changes to B30 would, like Frank said, would have an extensive discussion on our part, which is why I think I'm more comfortable with this now, is because there's only a couple changes to B20. And they're like golf cart sales and food trucks.
Yep, correct.
So,
And Jeremy, also, right now, we had no say on this business going in there.
I agree. We
You
had no
know,
say.
and
Yeah.
if we,
Yeah.
No, I agree.
if it was on, if, as according to this list, it would have come to us.
yeah, so
Okay.
I think that's
And-
kind of why I'm more okay
Yeah,
with it now.
and y'all will have the vote.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
then
Well,
that's
I mean-
perfectly fine. Y'all
but
will have
you-
the vote, and I cannot vote, and it's
Do you
y'all still get it.
Right now,
I'm
we're.
never gonna change my mind.
Oh, I'm not asking you to change your mind.
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand
I
that we
understand
got
completely.
bypassed
I understand completely.
because it wasn't here.
No,
in
I
these
understand
ordinances.
completely.
I'm trying to capture the minutes here.
Okay.
Ted
Good luck.
made a motion and Jeremy
Seconded
seconded it.
to table it.
Table.
Yes.
Minnie and Paxton were both against it.
Right.
Laura had not yet voted.
Yep. So
That's
now she just needs to vote.
Against what? Okay.
Tabling it.
Again,
until
I'm
I
against
read-
tabling it.
Okay.
Thank you. So the motion carries 3-2.
But but here's my question on that. With the way Robert's rules read, could we have a discussion for 20 minutes after the motion was made and the motion was seconded? Can you
Yes.
still discuss it for 20 minutes
Of
prior
course,
to?
if somebody leaves.
I'm just asking.
Yes,
I don't think there's a time limit on
Okay,
this.
I don't have my book with me, so I'll go home and look it up.
I do. I've got it.
yeah, it's certainly appropriate to have a
Okay,
discussion after a
Yeah,
motion.
I'm just making sure. I'm just
You
trying to
have
make
voted.
sure, I'm just trying to make sure that somebody won't come back and say, y'all did something incorrect. Does that make any
No.
sense?
You and Ted voted to table it, but I tried to get a vote
Yes.
on the final of it.
Yes.
And Paxton and I said, we're not for tabling it, so
Yes.
he's waiting on her vote.
Yes.
So the motion failed.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it failed after
Okay.
20 minutes of
So
more
is
discussion.
there
That was my
any-
question.
Yes.
A second motion?
We
Do you want
haven't
to
made
go
a
forward?
final decision.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Because
catch up.
Ted and Jeremy tabled it.
Because I don't,
And Pat, um,
Defeated that motion.
Chair,
yep.
Assistant Chair and I did not agree, and she still hasn't voted.
She did.
Does that make sense?
She just
I
voted.
just voted.
Oh, you're for
And
it, so
that's-
we're gonna.
Yeah.
So now y'all get
Motion
to vote.
fails.
So do you want any other motion to go forward at this time?
Let me make this suggestion to you in an effort to hopefully provide some greater comfort. If you think you may want to recommend this ordinance tonight, maybe it would be appropriate to take that entire list that I mentioned as permitted uses and make them all special uses, at least at this stage of the game. And then you
No,
can
I agree with
revisit
that
that
100%.
at a later time.
That was the problem that I had, was the way that it was written.
Make the motion,
I'm-
I'll second.
So,
I made
but
the-
let me finish the thought. With the exception of the food trucks in conjunction with public or private special events, the intent was to make them permanent.
No, the food trucks, like, okay, if there's a car show,
Yeah.
or if y'all are having the town center out here, the town, get together.
Melon patch or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Anything that, if Lowe's Foods want a truck
Yeah.
cook-off or something, then that's a special use. I mean, and a food truck
Yeah.
should be allowed. You just can't set up a food truck on a permanent location without,
That was the intent of the way
Yes.
this was written. So if you want to allow food trucks at a special event, public or private,
Yeah.
I would just say, leave that one out. Leave that one as permitted,
Yes.
if you would.
no, I agree with that 100%. And the way that I had a problem with it was the way it was written.
All right, well, make the motion.
I make the motion that we change, hold on, I gotta find the correct,
Take out food trucks.
yep, I'm looking for the thing. Take out food trucks to make it a permitted use on special events, I guess you would call it. Is that correct?
Food trucks in conjunction with public or private
Public,
special
yes.
events would remain permitted.
Permitted, yes. And then the, everything else under B30 would be a special, permit, a special use permit. No, I agree with that 100%.
All right, you made that motion.
I made that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Let me just clarify, because you said everything under B30 will be a special use permit. There are certain things that are already permitted under B30. And so is your intent just for the new things that I listed to be special use permit, or you want to change all these other things too?
The new ones, I guess, and the.
Just the new ones?
Just
like
the new ones is the
and
way
then
that I.
Okay, and that's what I thought you meant, but I want to be
Yeah,
certain.
because there's some things
Here
that's
they are.
already,
In this
So I
part
labeled
two,
them that
Frank,
would
is that part
become-
two?
yeah, like, boats, you know.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's those three. And
So,
then
and then down
it's-
here.
No, it's
no.
not those.
Basically, the items that are on the bottom of page 1 and the top
So it
3
would
quarters of
Here,
page
here.
2,
Yeah,
be-
those two.
those
Yep.
would all become special use
And
permits in
repair.
B30.
Forgot to mark
And
that
page
one.
3 already
This
is
one.
proposed as special use permits.
Because, right
Yeah.
here,
And we can
golf course
always
shows
come
there.
back to this.
You certainly
Like
can.
Heavy,
industrial.
industrial, both of these. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
no, that's what
Okay,
I'm
and there's-
trying to,
Yeah, there's a
The
couple
motion's
more.
been made and seconded.
that was exactly,
Yeah, that'd be fine.
yes.
Okay, and a final vote on this.
All in
We have a
favor?
first and second.
Let,
All in
let, let me,
favor?
let me pause you one more time. Golf cart sales and services,
That's
the
already-
intent was to make them permitted.
They're already
They're
permitted.
permitted in B20.
Yeah, they're already permitted in B20.
They're not currently permitted in B20. This ordinance, as it was written, would make them permitted in B20 and B30.
Okay.
So I just want to make
We're
sure that,
Proposing permitted
Oh,
for both of
proposing,
these.
I thought it was
Yeah,
already-
anything
See,
underlined is
okay,
being
Well,
changed.
see, I was just doing here, I was permitted here,
Yeah.
should fall under either.
Well,
so
and there,
It would be
yeah.
a special use here, but if it's permitted here, then you can't make it a,
Mhm.
if it's 20, then it's 20. If it's 30, it's 30. You can't.
And I'd be fine
have
with it
both.
being permitted for
Okay.
both.
Yeah.
It's literally just this
I'm
one.
gonna ask Jim
30
for-
is just that one.
Yes.
Correction, right?
So the
yes.
golf cart
Let-
sales. would be-
let me just restate it to make sure that we've
Okay.
captured it the way you want. So the motion would be to adopt the ordinance amending the table of permitted and special uses to clarify the B20 and the B30 zoning district. We would leave food trucks in conjunction with public or private special events and golf cart sales and services as permitted in the B20 and the B30, and actually B10, B20, and B30 for the food trucks, golf carts, B20 and B30. And then everything else that's included in the memorandum would be a special use permit in the B30.
That's
Would
correct.
that
That would be
meet
page
your
1,
intent
2,
for the tobacco
3.
and vape shop, if that's,
It would.
That would
Okay.
then be a special use.
yeah,
Would that
and
be
it already.
page
That one's
14?
already recommended as a special use.
Okay. Okay.
In page
Because
4,
there's certain things that should, but see, and that's, I guess that's still where I'm having the issue.
Page 4, those
Certain
are
things,
indicated as special uses already.
If
Those
they're
are
already sold in
the
other places,
6
that's
items that have
something for me,
additional
so
requirements, the
that's where I'm having
1,500
the
foot
issue.
separation. So
Because the
that
ordinances
would-
changed
that
in
would remain.
between
That's
when
part
the
of the
first
But
one
you understand
was.
what-
Now,
But one's gonna go
just
in.
for my,
Yeah, but they can't.
because I don't have my
But you have certain things
map
like.
and
Can't
river.
help that somebody else got
Does that
grandfathered in
mean
before
that anything
ordinances
in the
were
shopping
changed.
Exactly, that
center
doesn't
is
bother
within
me.
1,500 feet of
Because
the
there's window
Presbyterian or
ordinance and
Baptist
light
church?
ordinance and everything that are. That
So
was the thing,
anything that's in the
signs.
shopping center is
Yeah,
zone
signs.
B20,
Right,
Do you
and the
come
answer
out
would be
on
no
that?
right off the bat,
right,
because we only allow them in B30.
right.
Now, if you rezone the shopping
Yeah.
center to B30, we'd have to measure off the 1,500 feet, and I'm
That's what I
just
was
not
asking,
sure,
just,
so,
because I don't have my.
yeah.
Okay, I have to ask Jeremy again to introduce it again. Is that correct?
No, I think we're,
If you want to make the motion consistent with my recap. you
yes,
can do
Yeah.
it
that,
was,
so.
and the problem is I'm
Okay.
not gonna make it exactly the way he, but yes, basically what has been, what's already under R30 is under R30. What's not under R30 would become special, B30, sorry. Sorry, I'm doing the same thing. Would be special use, except for golf cart
Sales.
sales
and
and
service.
service.
That's in
Because
B20,
Yes,
B10,
and
And
now.
and the food trucks in conjunction
Yeah,
with public
with-
or private special.
That's
uses.
correct. And what she said.
And second,
And in B30, actually, food trucks would be added as a permitted use
Yes.
Right.
in B30, yeah.
Yes,
And then everything else in the memo would be special use permit in B30.
Yes, sir.
that's correct.
Is that your
Yes, that is what I,
motion and seconded.
second? You take a vote?
Aye,
I agree.
okay.
Thank you.
are you gonna be here that week?
Yeah. I'm actually not traveling for a while. Well,
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but my next work trip isn't until September.
Oh, did we hear a volunteer for number 8?
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what I just heard.
Oh. All right, let me check my actual calendar then.
Jeremy, number 8.
I'm just literally not out of town. That's the only thing.
The problem is I have a lodge.
All right,
meeting
let
on
me
the
get
same
back to
night
what I'm
of
supposed
the
to be
town
doing here,
meeting.
y'all. Okay, let's cheer here. The next board meeting of commissioners is August 12th. And would you like to go over what we spoke of tonight?
No?
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 Mr. Jeremy?
I normally have a lodge meeting that same night. That's the problem. is
On Mondays?
On Mondays, the second and the fourth Monday of every month, I have a lodge meeting.
Yeah, my husband has on the calendar that he's out of town that week, so.
But if I need
don't
to,
wanna
I will come
volunteer.
and speak on that night and I will, not go to the lodge meeting that night if I need to.
Well, I mean, one other option too is, if y'all just can't make it to a Board of Commissioners meeting, I'm happy to update the board on what the planning board's decisions were at the previous meeting, if that's helpful to you.
I mean, if I need to do it, what I'm gonna ask is that somebody helps me kind of put together, I can sort of, the minutes will be ready before then, so I can kind of
It's a
recap
huge
on.
help.
Yes,
Huge.
okay.
There are a
all
lot
right.
of
Then
minutes.
Then I will,
So we're doing Jeremy for number 8.
yes, then I will do it.
And if
I'll
not,
take
then
one for
Frank,
the
can you
team.
do it if you can't?
I'm happy to do it at any time that you all would like me to.
All
Well,
right,
Jeremy will set Jeremy up for it, and if he can't work it out, then Frank
Okay,
can review the board.
all right.
All right, does the town staff have any comments?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. The Pamlico Sound 2025 Hazard Mitigation Plan Update and Survey is underway. This is used for our FEMA flood management study. There is a website for a survey that's been put on the town's webpage. So if you want to take it and share it with other people so that they have input into what the study's going to look at.
So this will be for 2025, 26.
It's a 5-year study, I think, but I mean.
Is it really?
Yeah, but it is 25, yeah.
Okay.
And then also,
Apologize.
we got our updated floodplain map notification.
Oh, we got it? We got the map?
We got the letter.
Oh,
The maps will be coming in January. The preliminary maps are on the GIS.
Oh.
Instead of clicking effective, you click preliminary, and so you can see the changes. So
Is that cost us a lot?
So the new maps are effective in January, and the most significant change is that many of the soundfront homes on Bogue Sound are going to be subject to some V-zone requirements that you typically see on the ocean front. There's accommodations for wave action in those areas, and that's new, and we're not the only community affected by that, but
Okay.
so that's going to make it a little more challenging and costly for property owners in those locations going forward. But I don't think anything too cumbersome.
You made me think of something, Frank. We have a no wake thing disappear out there on.
Well, here's what I'm gonna say, unless the Coast Guard puts up a no wake zone, it's pointless. A no wake zone is not, unless the Coast Guard implements it, it is not a no wake zone. Just gonna state that.
If it's a sign that we installed that came down, I'm happy to put it back up. It gets more
Yeah,
complicated if
it
it's
was.
something new. So
Yeah.
But my point is, unless the Coast Guard actually makes it a no wake zone, it is not a no wake zone, no matter what signs put up, no matter what signs shared. And the only reason I'm stating this is because if you read the actual law, that's what it stated. Yes, it should be followed. Huh?
wildlife can't enforce
No,
it.
because it's not Coast Guard approved.
Well, it
No
just
wake
cost
zone.
us $40,000 to dig our canal.
No, I agree,
because of it.
but actually going fast through there actually helps it.
That no wake sign, no wake, it was there and it's
I'm
gone.
on the water.
and where is this location?
The location was the end of Lejeune, in between, Hunting Island and water marker 42.
Okay. All right. I'll look into it.
Is yours still up on your corner?
Nobody obeys it anyway. They just zoom by.
I slow down right at your corner. Unless I'm making the cut through the little
Yeah.
bypass, and then I'm wide open through there
Zoom.
until I get to the other, because when I'm running the boat, that's the
You
only
have
way I
to
can
go
get
on
through
the
there.
plane, that's right.
Exactly, because otherwise I'll be on the bottom.
Thanks, Frank.
The only other thing I just wanted to let you know is that the Board of Commissioners did adopt the ordinance regarding the setbacks from the overhead power lines at their last meeting in July.
Great. So we accomplished something, huh?
We did?
All right. Additional planning board meeting
Members,
comments?
okay, I have distributed the two solutions to removing the pavement and the gas line on private property on Country Club Point. I'd like for the members to study these two proposals, make their own, and be prepared to discuss them at next month's meeting, please.
I already know what.
Okay, now you
Saves the
want,
tree.
on the first, the front copy is the gas line, and you want, and the second copy is where you want it to be.
No,
No, the
these
first
are
copy is the
two
one that was blank.
solutions. These are two solutions.
Number one.
I know it's on private land, right?
Yes.
No, she wants to.
Solution
Yes,
A,
where the trees in the road.
Yeah.
I've went around
Yeah.
this tree line.
these are two different solutions proposed by Tidewater. Staff, planning board members, anybody can
Go
make
down there.
additional suggestions.
The only comment I would make is that I think this decision's really in the purview squarely for the Board of Commissioners,
True.
because it's a resource allocation decision about
True.
whether or not they want to use resources for this. So
But we have to get the ball rolling. I don't want to go in, for example, and take pavement off of my private property without the town board, the planning board, and everybody involved in that
I think
road use.
what Frank is trying to tell us, I think he would have to introduce it to the commission board
But
when he provided.
But I agree that we should come up with a solution, vote on it before it gets taken to the board. Am I wrong or am I right?
Well, we can talk about whatever you all would like to talk, but what I would suggest to you is that the Board of Commissioners was very direct to me in that they wanted the planning board to focus on ordinances, regulations, development issues, as opposed to other decisions that maybe have a peripheral
But this is
Well-
kind of
For
a
the planning
development
board,
issue because of the
but-
houses that are down this road.
So I'm happy to talk about it if you want, but the Board of Commissioners' direction to me was to keep the planning board focused on new development, regulations, UDO, land use plan, those kinds of things. In this particular, with this particular issue, absolutely agree with the need to make the change, and I've shared that with the Board of Commissioners. It's ultimately just going to be a matter of them identifying funds to make this happen. And to be perfectly frank with you, I don't see this happening anytime soon.
Well,
So-
what would happen if I just decided to go in and take the asphalt off my property? That wouldn't be a happy
Yes,
solution.
the people at the end of that road would not be very happy. And they
Yeah,
pay
so-
quite a bit of money in
So I'm
taxes.
asking that the town board address the two proposed
Just gonna say that.
solutions.
There's
Okay,
waterfront.
They don't have to come up with the money, they don't have to do it next week or next month. Just consider the proposals put forth by Tidewater and decide what they want to do.
Yeah, so I think in the conversations I've had with the board, and I've updated them about this issue a couple times at
Yeah.
recent meetings, I think they certainly agree with the desire to relocate the road, and I think we can probably make that happen at some point in time. It's just, it's something that we don't have funds budgeted for right now, and they'd have to make that decision going forward.
But
And those are the decisions of the Board of Commissioners.
Right.
And so I'm happy to have whatever conversation with the planning board about that, but I would just tell you, their specific direction to me was for the planning board to focus on these other matters, like you
Then
talked about tonight. So
I will get on the agenda and I will address the town board on this issue personally.
You're certainly welcome to do that.
And I won't be there that day.
And I agree with the project. It's just, it's going to cost some money and going to take some effort to do that.
Everything
So-
costs
so
money.
Yes.
They're making $90,000 off my boat ramp.
I understand, but it's really the decision of the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah, because if the asphalt got taken up down there, there would be some
Right.
very,
Well, I
very.
wouldn't do that.
No, I know,
wouldn't
but
do
there, I'm just saying, there would be some very, very
A couple
irritated
meetings back,
people
Of course.
against
maybe
it.
like
Not
me,
just you, but the
we
town
talked
too, because
about,
they didn't.
crosswalks on Taylor Notion Road.
Yeah.
Like maybe just like the lighted kind, like they have on Emerald Isle, where you,
Some of those were.
Yeah, so-
Yeah,
talked
there's-
about in the
I saw
bike
those
path.
ones. Yeah, but that one's all the way at the end. And we also talked about one closer to like the gym, the library,
One at like
For-
Pine Lake would be.
because kids from Star Hill are running across
Yeah.
Taylor Notion and on their
Yes.
bikes and stuff. My own kids included, they want to go to the gym and they drive their bikes across Taylor Notion at night and stuff.
Mm.
Not anymore, thankfully he can drive now, but it's just, it's even for me, if I want to walk my kids to the library, I don't because I don't want to cross Taylor Notion because there's no
Don't blame you.
protection. So I was wondering if that's something that we can just follow up with.
Yeah, so we actually already have to some extent. So there's the Western Carteret Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan that's being developed by the 4 towns right now.
Okay,
And
saw
so
that.
we took that feedback
Okay.
and that's been incorporated into the draft right now. So Julie and I just reviewed some draft maps. The actual draft plan will probably come out here in the next month or two, but those things are in there at this point.
I would
And I expect they'll
suggest
stay.
Adding one though, at either where Star Hill Golf Course entrance is or at the other end where Star Hill Drive comes out, because that's where the walkway is going to be on that other side of the road. So even still in my scenario, they'd have to go, if they wanted to go to the library or the gym, they'd have to go all the way down to the end where the light is and then cross. Which maybe that's the solution, but I just wanted to say that it might be also good to have one somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
Pine
and
Lake.
Julie,
That's
if
where
you
most of the kids go down.
if you recall, please chime in. But I'll get you a copy of the draft map. I believe there's
I've
at
seen
least 2 and maybe 3, if
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
mistaken. But let me
I-
get clarification on that for you. But
Yeah.
Because
we
Pine
took
Lake's
that
where most of the
concern and
kids seem to
incorporated
come out of
it.
Star
It
Hill
went out in
North
the,
and Bob White and then the other,
Mhm.
you know, they seem to all funnel out of there.
Yeah, and I think the 3 proposed crosswalks, I think, from what you guys sent out from the town, is there's one down here, like on Highway 24, somewhere near here, across to the shopping center. So like, it's kind of somewhere in this main strip. And then there's one at the end of Taylor Notion where the light is crossing Taylor Notion and crossing Highway 24.
These were in addition.
Yeah, so
They're
what
on
you're,
Taylor
Oh, they're
Nation
addition to
Road.
those.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
so
all right.
let me clarify for you, because what you're talking about is the grant that we were awarded.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's for pedestrian improvements at the 3 signalized intersections. What
Okay.
we're talking about is this new plan that's being
okay.
developed. It covers all 4 towns, some of the unincorporated county areas. And so we've actually included crosswalks. We've actually included a sidewalk on the other side of Taylor Notion Road in the
Okay.
plan right now. It's
Okay.
still in draft form, but there seems to be support for that. So, but let me get you a copy of that and show it to you. And that's a good first step toward making that happen.
An additional sidewalk
An additional sidewalk
on
on
Taylor
the,
Notion.
yeah.
Yeah.
From where to where?
I believe it was from, I'd have to, please don't
No,
hold me. 'Cause
no.
I think it was from Star Hill Drive all the way down to the other end of Star Hill Drive, if I'm not
Interesting.
mistaken.
Interesting.
But, and again,
There's
it's
a lot of
a
sidewalks.
plan, so there's no resources allocated for it now, but it's at least a step toward that, so.
Okay.
Can we, I'm gonna bring up an old subject. You know, McDonald's had given the town money for a sidewalk. And I think y'all thrown it into the cash pool, but putting a sidewalk to where people can walk to the signs in front of McDonald's to get to the flowers and.
I had not heard that,
There's
so
a
I'm just
Mc-
not,
a McDonald's, when they built it, gave us,
I don't remember anything
That
about
was
it.
a long time ago, so.
there was money in there from McDonald's. It wasn't much money, Frank, to put a sidewalk in front of it.
That's in 87.
I was gonna say, I don't remember 87. I
Well,
was only,
I don't know the
9 years old.
history of it, but what I can tell you for sure is there is no money earmarked for a sidewalk near McDonald's right now.
Well,
That
it-
much I'm certain.
I
of,
think
so.
they pulled it.
Okay.
I think Sandy
I was
pulled
9
it
years old.
because I kept up with, that money,
Okay.
town money and that. But it's only a few $1,000s. But when you go to do your sidewalks and things, think about putting that sidewalk in front of McDonald's for the people to get to the flowers and sign.
We can certainly share that. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
there's,
There's a
so,
little bit of money. You'll find it if you look.
You can do one.
yeah, we'd have to do some research on that. I had not heard that, and there's nothing specifically set aside that I'm aware of, but.
She rolled it into the
so.
cash pool.
So, did you close on lot 29?
Which one is that? Is that
Yeah.
Taylor
My-
Notion,
my-
100 Taylor Notion Road? I literally signed the deed today.
Yes.
And so it probably will be recorded in the next day or two.
I see.
So,
So it's
Someone's
electronically
intending that for a
recorded.
house?
Should've
Someone's gonna put a
been-
house there?
I'm
It was
sorry.
No, he
electronically
just wants
recorded,
to
then it would be
use
recorded.
Well,
he
I
just
got the
wants
hard
to
copy
use-
sitting on my
okay.
desk.
I got it.
So it hasn't gone to the
That's
people that
awesome.
record it
I got it.
electronically, so.
Yeah, because it's usually, I'm used to everything
Broke my heart.
Signed
signed
it.
and done.
I signed it 2 hours ago.
I'm used
Now,
to
they have to
it
put a
being-
house on there, right?
No, they
No.
can just leave it vacant forever.
Yeah.
That too, but.
It's limited to single-family residential.
Single
only,
home and Star Hill rules, right?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Also, are we gonna put lights in on Taylor Notion?
I sure
on the-
hope not.
Where the new townhouses are going in,
Lights?
What kind of lights?
What type of lights?
street lights.
Oh,
I think
thought
they
you
have
meant
lights
stoplights.
internal.
I
They're
sure
not on
hope
the right
not.
side of Taylor Notion. If
Um,
you're coming from Taylor Notion from the east side.
yeah, so there are no specific plans to add streetlights there, but what I would say to you and to anybody in the community, and we've done this, I mean, if people have a request for an additional streetlight, we're generally happy to accommodate
But-
them, and we've done that in several places. So if we'd like to add one there, that's pretty easy to.
But
Well, I
won't-
think-
Won't the people who's building the complex maybe have a couple of standing streetlights?
I would
I
in
have
there?
their
I would
plan.
think so inside, if I
I do
remember their plan, yeah, I do too.
I think when I recommended it, I
But
think
that
we
might be
approved
something
it
that
when
needs to
they
be-
asked for the townhouses for us to put streetlights in on that side.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be
I remember
up
us
to
having this
people, really.
conversation, you and I at least having this conversation, and so.
Have all
And the
the
men that,
greenery,
doing
do we? Oh, yeah, I guess
this
we do.
project too.
I don't see anything about streetlights.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't
that would be
recall,
up to them.
I don't recall any
It's-
developer
that
provided
wouldn't be up to
street
us.
lighting
That would be
in
up to
that,
us. No.
in that townhouse development.
Yeah.
But what I would say to you is, I'm happy to consider adding a town street light in
Yeah,
that
I would
general
do
area
that.
at some
But
point.
but my question, that would be up to the developer. The town should not,
Oh, the electrical company pulls them in free.
again, that's up to the developer. In my opinion, that's not up to the town to put in a streetlight. That's just my opinion.
I'm talking about highway lights, just like we got on 24. I got 13 new ones put in. We used to have them just on one side of the highway. I put 13 in in front of the school.
Yeah, we like
And-
having ours right out front because our kids, when they wait for the bus stop, if we didn't have that one there, it'd be completely dark out there.
I
So-
think what I would suggest is once the project is completed,
Yeah, look at
we
what's
can
what.
see how things look out there. And if there's a request to add a town streetlight on the Taylor and Ocean Road right away, I'm happy to accommodate that. We've done that in several locations in the town, and it's fairly easy to do and inexpensive. So
Yeah, for that big of
But
a house, I mean, all those people, it probably should
not,
have.
it's manageable. It's not a
I
big
mean,
deal, so.
I know we gotta pay the bill, the electrical bill, but the street light shouldn't cost us nothing.
One last question.
Sure.
To cut the 2 dead trees on my property, as things stand, I don't need a zoning permit. Is that right?
Yeah,
$100.
We
Yeah.
tabled it till next month, so get it done this month.
$50 for the road damage.
You can cut down any tree on your property that you would like to cut down. So
Just now, next month.
But
they
I'm
might-
without talking to me or Julie or
Thank you.
anybody here.
But I'm telling you, I'm
With
gonna
a-
cut down because the trees are dead and dying and they're dropping out.
Sure.
Now, next month, you might not be able to do it
That's right.
without. So you better jump on it this month.
Get that chainsaw.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Please.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, all in favor?
We'll be here tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeremy, for the
I'll be here tomorrow
conversation
night,
tonight, buddy.
Sir.
Next month, I want you to give me a list. I want to know the answer on